Okay.
Good evening, council. Good evening, staff, and everyone else. Okay, you have to speak loud. That's not a problem for me. It might be a problem for some of you, so we'll remind you. Thank you, everyone. Before I call the meeting to order, I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is constituted under Ministerial Order number 139 under the Emergency Program Act, RSPC 1996 C111, Section 10, and that it is as written. So I'll call this special council meeting of June 22nd to order. Thank you. Are there any late additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, there are no late additions. However, the documents in favor or not of the Reynolds that came in after the agenda was published has been provided for you.
Yes, Councillor Howard.
I would like to request an amendment to the agenda to include a new item under new business. That being
What section is that?
section number 17.
17? Okay. $17.2. Need a title.
We'll call it call to action.
Call to action. 57?
Number 57.
Okay. Any other late additions or deletions? We have a delegation.
We have 3.
Okay. Good. So I need someone to move that the June 22nd special council meeting agenda be adopted. Who will so move? Councilor Weed, second. Councilor Leach. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. It's good to see you, councilors, in person. I can tell you that. Instead of staring at a screen. Thank you. Okay, we have a delegation. Item 3.1, a group of caring citizens get to Lillooet.
Thank you, Toby. Would you please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera?
Hello, everybody. I hope this will work. I'm coming at you from my home, so it's a satellite connection. You guys are a bit pixelated. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think that the letter explains it as succinctly as I could. I did want to apologize. There were a few people who wanted to sign, and I just couldn't chase them down. But they had sent me an email saying that they wanted to sign. So the letter has a couple of names with no signature. But I also had a lot of people hear about it afterwards and be like, "Oh, I wish I could have signed that." So anyway, I don't know what else to say except what's in the content of the letter, and to ask if you have any questions, or if you'd like me to speak to it more, I can.
Well, I can canvass council if you have any questions, but I think the letter is pretty much self-sufficient. It explains it fairly good, although I guess I have to remind you, you're running out of the month of June.
I knew that, and it was just a spontaneous thing that I was like, I really want to do this, and I realized, June is I thought I was going to be able to get it to council on June 15th, and I didn't realize about the meeting change, and but then the flag will be there for other occasions and for 2021 too. So.
Well, that's what I can say. Normally, the normal course of events, and I think it's kind of, we've taken the stance that we don't make resolutions usually, unless it's really extraordinary, on the delegation. We usually send it to staff, and then it gives the council an opportunity to digest it, whatever. But I'm open to input from the councilors. Councilor Howell?
Well, in light of everything that's been happening globally, I think that we should consider the option of hanging the flag beyond June. And I'm not sure if that would be appropriate, perhaps we could look at year round. I realize that we don't have an extra flagpole, and I'm hoping that perhaps we could look at something for that in the future. But in the interim, perhaps there's a place that we can hang it.
Anything else? Obviously, from my perspective, we are personally on the line. However, we must be cautious in the sense that we've got a lot of interest similar to that in terms of the rainbow flag. Staff as of today, I mentioned to the CAO by rights, if we're going to go that route, it's something we have to consider. We can just be inundated with left, right, and center. So, as I say, it's an honorable request. As a, what do you say, a rather experienced elderly person, I sort of feel that, you know, if it's Polar Bear Month or Earth Day or whatever the case may be, I respect that every day of the year. However, I'm open to what the council wishes to consider and agree with. Yes, Councilor Hoffman.
So I agree. I think it's a real honorable thing to do, but I also have the issue that we have things like Aboriginal Day and Earth Day and Secretary Day and on and on and on. And how do you honor one and not the other? Like, I just think that, I know that we have a second flagpole at the museum. Do we have any others? Like, is there one at the rec center? I think the rec center might be a good place to put one up, and then anybody that wants to have one, do it. And just keep in a government office, then I don't want to show bias to any group, as opposed to not showing camaraderie to all groups.
Councilor Lee.
I too had thought along the lines of Councilor Hopwell, and the fact that you mentioned the flagpole at the Museum and Leisure Center, I didn't realize there's a flagpole there, but I think there is. You're thinking correct, but also I was thinking along the lines of that hanging the flag in a place, tourism would actually benefit the community, because we would be showing that we're an LGBTQ community friendly area, and it would actually help us economically as well as show us support.
I appreciate those remarks. I think I agree. And I had thought about what you said as well. But I think the difference between what this flag represents and what other flags represent, outside of the Shetland flag, I think that flag ought to be flown constantly, every year, all year round. That flag should be flying. That flag represents an upholding of people who are fighting against. I mean, they're being put to death in certain countries. This is not for the polar bears. This is not for another group. This is about combating total and utter violence and non-acceptance. And I think that removes them from an all-encompassing, blanketed, there's many great causes. It's so much more than that. And I think it's really considered.
Anyone else? You didn't put your hand up?
No, I was waiting.
Councilor Lee.
I was waiting and thinking. I'm in favor of flying it for the month of June, until the end of June. I don't think it should be flown all year round, just because it takes away from that particular emphasis. I think that down at the Visitor Center and the museum would be a great place rather than at the district office. And I, like our mayor, just kind of respect things day in, day out without really thinking about it. So I don't usually need reminders. I'm sure Kevin will take. But that kind of, I'm kind of like for the month, for the rest of this month, I'm gonna put it away and put it up next June again.
Ms. Mueller, you've heard the comments from the various council. Anything to add?
Yeah, it was a little hard. I had to really strain to hear everyone perfectly, but I think I get the gist of it, that there's general acceptance that it would be a good thing to fly the flag, and about just figuring out where and when. And I heard Lori's concerns about, all the different possible occasions that can be marked, and I don't have an answer for that. I think it is great to mark a lot of different occasions, and I think Pride Month is a really important one for us to acknowledge, because there's so, like, it's a lot of different people. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to see this happen in my community was just concern for young people. And I think it gives a really great message to young people in our community who are trying to figure out all their issues, about gender and sexuality, that they are part of our community, and we accept them. And to me, that's a really important message. So yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff there. I hope that these operational questions can just be figured out pretty easily, and I'm glad that people are positive about it, and I hope, we'll just find a good spot for it.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller, and I think you can glean that you have general agreement and acceptance by council. I think rather than can we leave it to staff to sort out the details? You have the gist of it. Do we require a resolution?
This conversation's been good enough.
Good.
Staff can work to figure out the best spot for it, and we'll continue.
We're short of time here, so it's something you're going to have to move on fairly rapidly. And as I say, Ms. Buell, normally in delegations, I avoid having to make resolutions based on them, because I want council and staff to digest it. But we recognize time is of the essence. Staff will get on it, and we thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks very much for listening to me, and have a great meeting. I'm going to listen to the other delegations, and thank you very much for your service.
Great, thank you.
You can go ahead and mute and turn off your mic, please, Toby.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready for 3.2 yet?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item 3.2, delegation BC Hydro capital projects update.
I think it's Sabrina and Jim. If you could please unmute and turn on your cameras.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Good. Do we have Jim as well?
I'm here.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Sabrina LaCicero with BC Hydro's Lower Mainland Community Relations team, joined by Jim Shepard, who is one of our project delivery managers. And so our update today is we're going to provide you with an overview of an update on the capital project work in the Lillooet area and throughout the Bridge region as well. So you get a sense of the big picture of work that's underway. And I can't see the slides, but if we could go to the agenda. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to see the slides in my view. I don't need to, but oh, that'll work. Excellent. Yes, if you can go to the next slide. Perfect. Yeah, so as you can see, we'll a lot to cover in about 10 minutes or so, but I do want to call out, in addition to the capital project work, we will also touch on our COVID response plan. So given the amount of crews in the region and coming through the community, we want to make sure you're aware of the mitigations, the things we're doing to keep our crews safe and the community safe, just so you're aware of that plan. We'll also touch on recreation sites, which are getting more attention as we're now into summer. So and maybe before I turn it over to Jim, I do want to flag, we did make some updates to the presentation this morning, so you might see some different numbers. It's the most current information. Wanted to make sure you had that, and Jim will call that out as he goes through the presentation. So with that, if you can go to the slide 3, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Okay, hi, Jim Shepherd here. This one we've actually gone through a number of times, but the 3 sort of important areas that I'd kind of like you to take a look at on this map of the Bridge River system is the La Joy Dam, that's to the far left. The Bridge River powerhouses, those are kind of in the center section, and then over to the Seton Powerhouse, that's on the right-hand side. And these are the 3 facilities that we're doing most of the work that you'll be seeing in the slides. So we can go to the next slide, please. I'm actually looking at my iPad because it's a little bit small. So if we're going to go to the Bridge River Generating Station, the 2 big facilities we have there is a Bridge River Generating Station 1 and Bridge River Generating Station 2. We are doing work at both of those facilities over the next between 8 and 10 years, depending on exactly how we're going to get these things finished. The biggest project is actually units 1 to 4. That project is currently underway right now. We are preparing to go to the BC Utilities Commission in approximately December of this year to put in all the documentation for the project, because it's over $100 million. And that'll be replacing the generators and some of the ancillary equipment over at Bridge 1. At the same time, because it's usually good to sort of we have to shut down a unit. There's no water in the penstock anyway. We're going to be doing the penstock unit 1 to 4 internal coatings at the same time. So when we do a unit, we'll do its actual penstock. We do the second unit, we'll do the penstock. If we go to Generating Station 2, this is where all the activity is happening right now. We'll get into that later on in the presentation. So right now we are doing some pre-assembly work, and that targeting completion of this work is going to be in 2021. Again, we'll be going into about the COVID mitigation we've had, but we took a look at the amount of people that were going to be in the Seton Portage and Chalath area, and found out with the work sites that we couldn't actually find a way of transporting workers to site safely. We couldn't find ways of making sure that we weren't going to have too many people on the site. So what happened is we were originally going to be doing the internal recoating of the penstock concurrently with the bridge units 7 and 8. We're actually going to delay that project until starting of next summer. So while the generators will finish in 2021, the penstock recoating will change to 2022, and that'll be different from the presentation you've seen previously. Go to the next slide, please. This is going to be the largest project that's going to be happening, is the La Joy Dam. So we are going to be doing some work, and we're still in a very early stage of this project. So we're reviewing all of the options that we have. There's work that we can do on the dam. There's work that we can be doing on the intake tower. There's a number of other things that we're going to be taking a look at the same time. So right now, again, we're at a very early stage, but right now it's looking between 2026 and 2031 that we're going to be completing that work. Because we're actually doing work on the face of the dam, which means we have to drain the dam pretty much all the way down to the bottom, so we can get to the toe of the dam and do the concreting on the face of that dam. You go to the next slide, please. This is actually the closest powerhouse to your location. This is the Seton Powerhouse. And right now we are looking at renovation or reconditioning or rebuilding or replacing the generator. Is probably going to be a replacement at this point in time. So that work is going to be finished at 2026. We're also looking at other options to be bypassing the unit. So putting an additional penstock in to take water from upstream of the head pond. You can just see the head pond on the far right-hand side of that picture. That's that shiny white little area. And then taking water from there and then putting it parallel to the unit and then into the Fraser River. And this is just more of a reliability exercise to make sure that if we have any problem with the unit, this is actually a bottleneck in the entire system. So we cannot generate anywhere else in the system because of that. So it's just another thing that we're looking at as part of our early work on this project. And the dam safety, there is a surge spill hazard mitigation. I think I've mentioned this before. It's actually on the top of Mission Mountain, and that's going to be finished in 2021. It's not a very large project. It's literally building a large swimming pool. So, you know, any water that comes out of the surge shafts will just be filtered right back into the surge shafts and back into the penstocks. We go to the next slide, please. Transmission, there are some transmission lines that are in the, I mean, there's a lot of transmission lines actually around the Bridge River facility. So right now what we're taking a look at is some replacements of some of the terminal equipment at the Bridge River 1 and the Bridge River Terminal. So there's a transformer over right by the Bridge 1 powerhouse that we're going to be replacing. That provides it provides power mostly to the local area of Seton Portage and Shalaf. And then the transformer in the Bridge River Terminal in 2023, and that is power coming from the Bridge 1, Bridge 2 power plants and going into one of the 200 kV transmission lines. And we're also taking a look at a transmission line project. Those are the transmission lines that go across the water from the Bridge River plant and then along the mountainside, and then coming into the Lillooet area, right around the same place where the highway comes in. Go to the next slide, please. As Sabrina was mentioning, we're really, because of the location and because of the amount of work that was going in place, we did a lot of work with the pandemic response plan, especially within the local area. And, you know, just so you know, I mean, I'm just, you know, we'll be reading it off, but I mean, we are really coming up with some very innovative ways of ensuring that the work is going to be completed. We've created this thing, we're calling it the pods. In fact, it was actually one of the first areas, Bridge River was one of the ones that actually created the system for BC Hydro. So these are small groups of people, 5 or 6. They essentially have nothing to do with anybody else other than their own pod. They are kept, you know, they've got their own separate washrooms, they've got their own separate facilities for lunches, so that if we do have any difficulties, we don't see any spread from one pod to the next pod, and everybody's very closely monitored. One of the things that we're also looking at is taking the actual operations crew. We've actually pared that back quite considerably, so we don't have a lot of people in the area. So only the people that are there supporting the maintenance or supporting the operations around the facility, and they're also being run in pods. So I'm not too sure exactly how they're running their pods, but we often take a pod where we have, you know, a group of people with the same trade, like electricians, or a group where you have an electrician, a mechanic, a general tradesperson, and so that they can do multiple pieces or multiple work at the same time. Go to the next slide, please. Workforce. This is another slide. You're going to see some fairly different numbers. Originally, we were estimating that the workers are going to be in Bridge this summer are going to be between 80 and 125. We've actually pegged that number exactly at 76, and that'll be the peak number. So most of the time that we're running between about 65 and 70, but there's a couple of times we actually peak out in 76. We have a couple of small projects that are going on in the Bridge River area at the same time of the work that's going on in 7 and 8, specifically on one of the transformers. So that's one of the peak times you'll see. And most of the time is going to be between the outage, which is starting in August, and then sort of our first unit is going to be finished approximately in February. So that's when you're going to see most of the work that's going to take place and the largest amount of people that are going to be here. Because of the delay in the penstock recoding project, we're actually going to have about 50 workers in 2021, and they'll be the people who will be preparing the penstock we're putting some safety hatches in it so we can access the penstock, and then we will be blasting it and painting it on the inside. Go to the next slide, please. Accommodation for fiscal 2020 and 2021. Pretty much all of the workers will be staying in Shallat and Seton Portage. We won't be running the boats. That was one of the things that we're having a concern of, is bringing people from one area to another area. It was going to be very difficult for us to get the number of workers in the boats and allow them to be safely distanced. And it's also, we didn't think it was a very good idea to be bringing workers from, into Lillooet, into Seton, and back and forth again. In the next projects we're going to having, that's mostly in Seton in 23 and 25. We're looking at people over in Lillooet, either in hotels or private houses. Next slide, please. So this is just some numbers. About 76 workers in Seton Portage in this year, about 50 workers in Seton Portage the next year, and then 2022, maybe 10 or 15 workers. We don't have a big year in 2022. Next slide. And just some general safety. I mean, BC Hydro actually has a fairly comprehensive safety management plan. I mean, we've got one of the things I really like to point out is a code of conduct. You can see a lot of the little posters on the right-hand side, but we were actually very successful working with the unions that represent the majority of the workers that we're bringing in. That's the Boilermakers, the electricians. And we have a sort of a code of conduct where we work beyond the workplace and also into times when you are in the region but not in the workplace. We're expecting people to be, their conduct that they're doing is like they're in their own neighborhood or they're in their own house. We're not accepting anybody who is going to be, causing problems in the local region. So I think, knock on wood, this is going to be very successful. We've actually got a lot of cooperation. We've got, like I said, the company that's providing the workers and the union, I mean, they're actually working with us. So it's a great idea. And of course, we've got the whole COVID-19 procedures. And we actually had a really great year last year. We actually had no lost time accidents reported the last year, nor have we had anything in the work that we've done to date on Bridge 7 and 8. And I'm going to be passing you over to Sabrina.
All right. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Should be recreation. So, as you can see, just to summarize the capital project work Jim just went over, the Lillooet is at one end of the system. It's the way the system works and the way we can access the system. Lillooet is an important part of how we get our crews there, and our crews are passing through, and there's a lot of work happening in Lillooet as well. So hopefully that gives you a good picture of the latest information on our capital project work. But to touch on some recreation site information, as you may be aware, we did in March BC Hydro closed its recreation sites province-wide in response to concerns over the ability to social distance at these sites, particularly in some areas where these sites were very popular given the good weather we had in March. Recently, as the province has begun to reopen and we're in phase 2, we've also started to look at what that means for our recreation sites across BC. And the way we're approaching it is a staged approach, and sites where that can allow for physical distancing, where we can implement measures to help mitigate the risks of transmission. Those sites are starting to open, but we do recognize there are some sites and campgrounds that attract larger crowds, that are more destination sites that draw crowds from out of the region and sometimes out of the province. Those sites are closed for the time being. The Bridge River area sites are the sites that are closed for now, and you can see the list there, which includes some Lillooet area campsites and recreation areas. So that to say, this is something that we're monitoring, coordinating with BC Parks and talking to other jurisdictions like Metro Vancouver to see what, as these practices are being implemented, how they're working, and also keeping an eye on how the pandemic evolves and potentially reopening these sites at some point. However, for now, they remain closed, and it's something, if you are hearing feedback or have any questions, do let us know, because we do want to monitor it and adapt our management of those areas as we go through the summer, especially as the days get warmer, and we're now in summer. So if you can go to the next slide, please. I have a bit of a delay, but it should be our community investment slide that you're seeing. Did want to call out a couple of things, just so you're aware of some of the other work in the area. We do have a couple of scholarships that we offer. This is the third year we've been offering that to students pursuing post-secondary studies in STEM or trades, and it's open to graduating students in Lillooet. And this year, happy to say, we're awarding 3 recipients. I think they're just in the process of being notified if they haven't already. So some good news there. Also, just always want to make you aware that we do have some grant applications available. We just closed an application period and are going through those applications now. So there should be some announcements soon that you may be hearing about. So just wanted to touch on those so you're aware. And then if you can go to the last slide on communications. Always like to end with this so you're aware of some of the tools that we have, and now especially so you know how we're using those given physical distancing requirements. So this is a list of tools that we have. As I said, open houses is one where we're looking at what we can do virtually as we look at especially our capital projects, and as those move ahead, to make sure people still have access to subject matter experts and things like that. So that's in development for now, but we're hoping to do things virtually there. We also will continue to use ads, and we have a biannual newsletter. The next one is due out digitally in the summer. We also have one-pagers, and we'll continue our updates to council just to make sure you have the latest information as well. And of course, we have our website that we put out there. So with that, we can, if you go to the next slide, we can open it to questions, given how much time we have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Jim. Council, you have questions or comments? Councillor Weed.
I have one question, Sabrina. I know you do the community grants, and I'm just wondering if you do larger grants for BMX parks, things like that, seeing as you have such big impact on Lillooet.
Sorry, it cut out a bit there, but it was like, do we offer larger grants for?
Yes, I know the community grant is $5,000, and I think you apply in like February or something, I believe. I can't remember. I was on the website. I just wondered if BC Hydro themselves ever invest in the communities that they're in, as far as skateboard parks, BMX parks, things like that.
We tend to follow. We've got a few different grant options, and we will coordinate with things like our contractor with Boyth. I believe if you saw on that one slide, that was coordinated with contractor in the community. Depending on the type of grant you're looking for, we could look at what's on the website and see how that could fit. But we'd have to look at the application and see how the money would be used and how it fits into our requirements as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Hoffel, please.
Yeah, I just have one question about the recreation sites. There's a picture of Seton Lake Beach here. Does BC Hydro still have jurisdiction over Seton Lake Beach, either 1 or 2? That is,
Jim might have more information, because I think I'm just going to look at the picture. That is the one with the logs, which some of the, yeah, so Seton Lake Beach.
Yes, at this time, we still actually have jurisdiction over, we're still the owners of the Seton Lake Beach. That's still BC Hydro property. It hasn't been transferred yet.
When will it be? Do you know?
My assumption is somewhere within the next year.
Okay, and you're going to let the public know that that's happening, just so people are aware?
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Any other? Yes, Councillor Howe.
Okay, I
I would like to know of any potential risks to the District of Lillooet and our water access levels. Any potential flood risks, any changes to water levels and flow amounts that would affect us. I understand that BC Hydro is in the early stages of planning and may not have developed those yet, but I would like to know approximately when we can expect a risk assessment.
I'm sorry, I'm not too sure exactly what you're asking. Are you looking for which river, which lake, which reservoir? I'm not too sure what you're asking.
Maybe if I can help along a little bit, I think what Councillor Howe is asking for is the risk to water levels to our community, and has a risk assessment been done to handle these? Is that coin it closely?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
If it has anything to do with the unit outages, absolutely. We do a lot of work. We have a generation GSO, Generation System Operation Group. They actually predict water levels and predict all of the lake levels and predict all of the amount of flow that we have down each one of the rivers. So whether that be the Seton River or the Lower Bridge River, they've actually got a flow regime that they can actually put that. Plus also the lake level over at Carpenter is one that we actually have to monitor a lot. And essentially the same thing with Seton. Now, Seton has actually got a very, like, we don't move Seton around very much, maybe about 30 centimeters at the most. Seton is actually a very, very closely regulated lake. We don't have a lot of ability to make Seton Lake go up and down at all. But all of that work has been done. And again, everything is done to minimize the amount of water that is going down both the Seton River and the Lower Bridge River within the ranges that we're allowed to by the water controller.
Okay, Councillor Hall.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, for now, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question, given obviously COVID-19, open houses are critical and important, and I think it can answer a lot of questions. Do you see that possibility coming up in the near future once the social distancing aspect is over with?
Yeah, so I mean, the hope is, we still plan to continue to engage, and part of that engagement is whenever you can have those in-person conversations, those are helpful. We can share that information, but I think the challenge will be, given the outlook with the pandemic, is we'll need to be adaptable and agile and find ways of providing that information in those meetings virtually. So looking ahead, we're going to look at possibilities of doing virtual open houses, using different online tools and other virtual tools that we have available to continue to do that. So still offering access to the subject matter experts, so Jim can come in, folks like Jim can come in and answer questions about the capital plan and areas of interest and concern like that. So we have a bit of definition to give to that still, but the hope is to continue an open house either in person or virtually if we can. So.
Great, Sabrina. It's just that I'm a bit of an optimist, and obviously, as you can see, this is the first meeting that we've had together. Basically, we're getting pressure, slight pressure from the ministry and from the premier in terms of getting our meetings more public again and pulling away from virtual as long as we can remain safe. I'll be giving that update in my mayor's notes in terms of our discussions with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And obviously, from that perspective, I would love it if the ability was there, and you can work with our staff and our rec center that possibly we can have an open house and a few of you people are there and we can arrange for the distancing. The face-to-face is far more, as I say, amenable. And I just urge you to work with us on that, because I think your projects are very, very important to our area. And I want to see people that are in the area that have queries or questions are able to come and see you dialogue with you. The virtual, I think we're all getting a little bit tired of it, but we know that it's important that it continues on what we have now.
That's great.
Good, thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. Council's okay? More questions? Very much appreciated, and keep up the good work, and we appreciate the impact that you're having on our community. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We go to item 3.3, Tourism Lillooet.
Thank you, Mr. De Bruin. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and dear Mayor Bussey and members of council, thank you for allowing the Board of Tourism Lillooet to appear as a delegation at your meeting. The other members of the Board of Tourism Lillooet would have appeared with me at this meeting if it was open to the public, but they sent their regret. In the letter in your agenda, we formulated our formal request for funding. In this short presentation this evening, I just want to highlight the rationale of why this funding would be hugely helpful for our local economy. And before I get into that, are you able to hear me?
Yes, very good.
Perfect. Okay. The last thing I want to do is spend 5 minutes of your time and then at the end. So, all right. Tourism Lillooet was established in 2019 by the Chamber of Commerce, and to focus on the economic development of the tourism sector in Lillooet and to manage tourism and avoid situations that we see at Jeffrey Lake. Last year was quite the situation there, and there were the same sort of congestion. Balancing the promotion of tourism versus protecting and preserving local heritage, environment, and culture. Tourism.
Rolf, I'm just going to jump in here for a second. You're cutting in and out. Are you on a Bluetooth headset?
Oh, I may be holding it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I won't touch it anywhere. All right. Okay, so as we approach phase 3 of BC Plan to Restart, Tourism Lillooet looking at assisting our local economy with its financial recovery. And at the same time, we're working on to implement our selected strategic priorities that we've defined in our strategic plan that the board has drawn up over the last year. Tourism Lillooet identified 3 strategic priorities for the next 6 months. And this was actually pre-COVID. And so the number 1 was create a website and social media presence specific to tourism promotion in Lillooet. Number 2 was develop a 15 reasons to visit and stay campaign. And 3 was to work with the District of Lillooet in identifying how signage and general aesthetics might be improved to enhance the visitor experience. That is a longer term initiative. So while these priorities were defined as steps in a long-term strategic plan, we feel that these priorities will be of great value in the recovery efforts for the hard-hit tourism industry in the region. The website, as well as the social media campaign, will be particularly valuable as the visitor guide will not be published this year. This annual visitor guide published by the Bridge River Lillooet News is an important source for visitor information. We are thrilled to learn that the campground and the visitor center are working on plans to reopen. Obviously, the visitor center is another primary source for visitor information. The Tourism Lillooet and the Lillooet District Historical Society will continue to collaborate to meet the need of our visitors. We learned that the Lillooet District Historical Society will not be requesting the funds dedicated to visitor services in the 2020-2021 budget of the District of Lillooet. The Tourism Lillooet feels that part of these funds could be really well spent on 2 projects that Tourism Lillooet has defined. And the first is why I'm here today. And the first is a near-term project focused on launching a social media campaign and a tourism-specific visitor-facing website. The website is currently under development and draws from many existing resources to provide an informative and appealing storefront to those people that are looking for information on Lillooet. It will include information about the history of the town, drawing on the golden miles of history, as well as visitor information from sources such as Hello BC and many other information that are provided by the businesses in town. It's particularly important to provide up-to-date information to the visitors of what is open and what is closed due to COVID-19 restrictions to avoid unnecessary travel. And we just heard that BC Hydro has not opened the rec sites. It's very important to have that broadly known so that people don't come here expecting that those things are open, because it just brings in unnecessary traffic into our region. And Tourism Lillooet has been collaborating with Suzanne Denbeck since she started a couple of weeks ago to optimize the plans for these near-term recovery efforts. And for its second project, Tourism Lillooet would like to appear later this summer at this meeting with a plan and funding request for more long-term initiatives that will be started this fall. And we hope to be able to provide a plan that will leverage funding against funds from NDIT and other funding resources. We're not asking for any commitments on this phase 2 at this time, but we did want to put it in front of you so that you know the context for phase 1. We believe that the initiatives of Tourism Lillooet closely align with the objectives set out by the District of Lillooet in its Action Plan 2019, and in particular, where it states to encourage development of local businesses, including those serving the growing tourist economy. I appreciate your consideration in this matter, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If there is someone talking, I cannot hear them.
Sorry. Start again, please.
Now, Mr. DeBruin, just so that you know, I just did what you were most fearful of, and I talked for about 3 minutes and nobody was listening. And if you think I can recall and remember exactly what I said, that's just not going to happen. However, I think it behooves us as council, and we're very well aware as council and staff that we need to do initiatives that will enhance and help our community and its businesses. And tourism certainly does play a role in it. And certainly from my perspective, council, I'm going to be speaking to that with regard to our campground opening resolution that's coming, because I see the big wave. It's there. And we have to capitalize on it. Number one, we're committed because we've engaged Suzanne Denbeck, and to work with it. And I do believe that tourism does play a very large role in that. I want to see us, obviously us meaning the District of Lillooet, capitalize on that in terms of revenue, which you've heard me before, we'll talk about it from the campground. But I believe that there is a definite case here, and we should not consider ourselves to be so stringent in terms of some of the funds that we've read circled. I would like council to keep an open mind with that, with staff, in terms of what we can do if necessary to enhance things along. I'm of the feeling, as I look every day that I come into town, there's a wave coming. In fact, half of it's here, and we've got to capitalize on it. We've got to assist our businesses in terms of directing them to them so that they can get as many dollars out of these people. I just, we didn't want people here to begin with. We now know we're planning for people that are within the province to come, and we should be prepared to accept them and take as many dollars from their pocket before they leave here. So I like this proposal, but I take the point that we've got to give this consideration. So it strays from the norm, as you recall, Mr. DeBruin, in terms of where we receive delegations. We don't make immediate, decisions, especially when it comes to the financial part of it. But I can assure you that staff and council are engaged in terms of what we can do for our area and the business locally. Anybody else have anything to say? Yes, Councillor Weed.
I do, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear me. I know we're in a really unique situation, and I'm understandable of that. And yes, there may be a wave of tourism, or there may be a wave of pandemic. We don't really know. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We already have a policy about letters coming to council requesting funding. And I would like to make a motion that funding requests from Tourism Lillooet be denied as per policy AD 0004, the community grant policy, which states that the Lillooet Community Foundation is the sole organization responsible for all grant and donation requests directed to the District of Lillooet. And I know if it wasn't a unique situation with the COVID, that this never would have come to our table. So that's where I sit at the moment.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Been seconded. Councillor Hoffel, discussion? Councillor Howe?
I disagree that it falls into the community charter. In that regard, I think that we are working so hard on looking for ways to support our staff and council on ways to come out of COVID. So what does our economic COVID recovery look like? When we have organizations that are saying, hey, we have a method in a measurable method to help with this process, I think that it should be considered economic development and not come under any other policy. They're here to help. We just need to help them.
You completed?
Yes.
Councillor Weeb, you had your hand up first.
I'm not sure if I did or not. I just think that we have 100% funded NDIT grant that's supplying us with someone that will look after the economic recovery and work with these various different groups. And I think that we, rather than throwing more money out there, need to be cognizant of that. And they all need to work together with Suzanne.
Councillor Hoffel?
So I agree, we do have that policy in place, and I think that instead of just handing over a check for $5,000 to say, go ahead and do this, I would rather see the staff work together with Tourism Lillooet as a community to bring this about. It should be all of our parties together, working together. And like I said, for the district to hand over money to any one entity and say, okay, yeah, you go ahead and do it, when it affects us all, we should all be working together to do that. So that money should, if it goes, should be coming from us as part of us and not as a donation to another group.
Okay. Will you give me the floor before you on that? Okay, thank you. Just to be clear, from my perspective, I don't see this as coming as a grant from the Community Foundation, obviously, and I think it was said that Mr. DeBruin said he was working with Suzanne, and I agree with you that what we should look at is having our staff work with Suzanne and the Tourism Lillooet and see what can be done. All I'm asking, it should be done expeditiously, that's all.
That's fine.
Because we've got to capitalize on what's happening right now, and things are changing. I agree fully, safely is the way to go. So please, for future reference, through this period, whenever I'm asking for something, always the qualifier is there, we must do it safely, okay? Because I don't want to repeat myself, and I'm not that forgetful. Okay, Councillor Howe was after me.
I think that you summed it up very well. No, I just wanted to address Councillor Reeves' comment and concern, and I am in agreement with you. We simply don't have the funds. However, we do have money set aside for other tourism type services. So Mr. DeBruin did speak to the fact that there was money that wasn't going to be used by the Historical Society, and that might be something that we could consider. So I'm completely happy to go with it.
So we'll see how it goes. Councillor Leach, sorry, Councillor Leach.
So I'm in the fence sitter on this a little bit. So I agree we have the policy for a reason. I do think this is a unique circumstance, and I would fully support the phase one that is listed in this. However, before agreeing to give over such money, because it's not only the visitor center that's not collecting money, it's the Miyazaki as well, and I think those combined will equal.
Open a can of worms.
It might. However, what I would like to see is maybe prior to making a decision on this, a report from Susan Denbeck on that includes this, as well as a report of how well the other tourism stakeholders are working together, because that is our goal, is to get these organizations on the same page. I think we've all been, in our discussions, been very clear that is what the District of Lillooet and the Mayor and Council want to see. So I'm just wondering, before a decision is made, is it possible to wait a week or two and see where the economic development liaison gets and where that planning is going? Like, maybe staff can chime in here and help fill that question for me.
Well, it goes without saying that obviously we want to hear from staff and our economic development liaison. There's no doubt about that. We won't make that decision right here. As I mentioned that, we won't make that decision here.
Well, we have a resolution on the table though, so a decision needs to be made.
Yeah.
On the resolution.
So the resolution for discussion right now, though, is very specific to
Yeah.
denying the request for a handing over of a check because it does break policy. That's-
Well, then why, any more discussion on that? Let's deal with that. We can still
Then
discuss
maybe
it.
move on to the next.
Then we can move on to the next.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Hoppel.
And I think after we vote on that, I can make another motion that, we take and we have staff work together with Tourism Lillooet to make it all one, so that and whether that money goes from us or not, it's at least working as a team together. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that as opposed to handing a check over. So that's just my opinion. So I will make a motion towards that after this motion on the table was voted on.
Music to my ears.
There you go.
Good. All right, let's vote on the resolution. Those people in favor?
Of my motion?
Yeah,
not to
yeah.
sort- oh.
That's tabled here. Those against? I'm in favor, so it's carried. All right. You have another resolution?
I do. I would like to make a resolution that staff be directed to explore opportunities to work with Tourism Lillooet as a part of the district's economic recovery strategy and bring recommendations back to council as soon as possible.
I'll second that.
That's good. That's on the table. Further discussion? I like that resolution. I prefer it, albeit, as I said, please, on one vote, one voice. Time is of the essence. And I feel that it's important enough that if necessary, it doesn't have to wait necessarily for our next meeting, but if it's felt by our staff and our economic development liaison person, that council come together to either approve or deny it. And I'm happy from the point that the first resolution is defeated, just so they know, because I don't feel the funds should be coming from the community grant process, but we have other Red Circle funds if council wants to look at them. Any other discussion on this resolution? Call the question. Those in favor? Carry. Any comments, Mr. DeBrun?
No, I really appreciate your consideration. And like I said, we have been collaborating with Suzanne Denbeck, and we'll continue to work with her to provide her with the information that she needs. And like I said, she's been a huge source of lots of great ideas about a lot based on her experience that she's bringing in. So it's been very valuable.
Thank you. We appreciate your time, and thank you, council, for your understanding. We'll work closely with whoever to enhance the economic resilience or recovery of our community. We appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Mueller, I will also ask you to disconnect at this time just to save us some bandwidth here.
You're not gonna pour that over me.
Fill you up before I go back over to Lori. How's that?
Oh, sorry, guys.
Thank you. Whoa, it's heavy. Yeah, there's what's right on my
I
hand.
know you're looking for an accident to happen. Okay? Oh, that was good.
I thought we were done. I was
Item 4.
relaxing.
There being no public statutory hearings, we'll move to item 5, adoption of the minutes. 5.1, that the June 1st, 2020 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. There's 2 separate resolutions or 1? Yeah. Who will move? Councillor Weed, second Councillor Hoffel. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. I need someone to move that the June 9th, 2020 special council meeting minutes be adopted as present. Who moves? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. There being no business arising in the minutes and no rise in report, we have correspondence and petitions. Before I put this resolution forward, does anybody want to withdraw an item of correspondence from 8.1? Councillor Weed?
I would like to withdraw the Lillooet District Rescue Society just because I would like staff to explain so that anybody who is on air or open or whatnot realizes the position that the district is in is different than area A and B. So that is the only reason I would like to do it.
So that would be 17.3, new business. 17.3 is the correspondence from Lillooet Rescue Society, District Rescue Society. Anyone else?
Aye.
Yes, Councillor Howe?
The Lillooet Volunteer Connect COVID-19 Transition and Recovery Planning and Implementation Process.
Okay, you want that
Yes,
removed?
please.
I think that essentially takes all our correspondence out, doesn't it?
Much,
So it saves me from asking for a resolution to remove. Okay, that is 17.4. Lillooet Volunteer Connect. And, all right. I need to, I don't know, I got it. There we go. Item 9, reports from committees of council and commissions. 9.1, we have the Lillooet Community Fund Committee recommendations. I would like the rep on the community committee recommendations to make the motion, please. I'm not going to do all the talking all the time.
Okay, so I just read number 1 and 2? Yes.
Yes, they can be moved together.
Okay, that as recommended by the Lillooet Community Fund Committee, the grant application submitted by the Lillooet Natural Society for the requested amount of $1,000 be approved. Could you move them together? And that as recommended by the Lillooet Community Fund Committee, the grant application submitted by the Lillooet Rowing Club for the requested amount of $1,000 be denied due to no record of a final financial report submitted for the fall 2017 grant that they had received. And that, as recommended by the Lillooet Community Fund Committee, staff be directed to write a letter to the Lillooet Rowing Club requesting the final financial report from 2017 and encouraging the club to reapply for the 2020 fall grant intake. We absolutely hate saying no, but in this case we have to.
And that's moved by Councillor Huffel. Who seconds? Councillor Weed. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Huffel. And item 10, reports and presentations of staff. 10.1, 2019 annual report. Do we have any comments, Wade? I've only got one concern. Okay.
Through the mayor.
I'm not happy with my picture, so I'd like a better one.
Me neither, me neither.
The only comment, we do have to, council does have to receive questions and submissions from the public. We have received none.
Is there any way we can, is there any way we can stimulate that a little bit? I'm not asking our CFO, I'm asking our CAO.
I've never seen comments from the public regarding annual reports. Usually the only people who read them are members of council.
And through the mayor, again, all of this, the majority of this information has already gone through council. The audited financial statements already went through council. The SOFI report already went through. So the public has other opportunities to engage as well.
No, it's just that obviously I find there's a lot of good information in there.
And
Obviously, you can only beg and plead and wish that people would read it and digest it. But, and a lot of the references, concerns, complaints, whatever it is, usually can be found inside that report, so. But a very nicely done report, much appreciated. So I need someone to move that council consider the District of Lillooet's 2019 annual report for the year ended December 31st, 2019, and receive submissions and questions from the public. Who will so move? Councillor Leach, second Councillor Howe. I'll call, well, before I call the question, is that an open-ended? Can they, between now and the next 20 years, submit and question that annual report?
They can, but we won't bring it back to the meeting.
All right, thank you kindly.
There was a deadline on it.
Okay, there is a deadline.
Yes.
Right, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Item 10.2, June 2020 financial update. That the June 2020 financial, before I table it, any comments from staff?
Through the mayor, again, we typically would have done a first quarter report to council. Everything kind of went sideways. That never happened. So this was just to provide council with a bit of an update as to our financial situation as it's at the end of May.
Much appreciated. Sounded very good. Councilor Reed, yes, go ahead.
I have a question for our corporate officer in regards to all this printing. I'm sure it's frustrating for him, and I'm finding it's a little frustrating for me. I'd like to have the agendas in print, but when we've already done all this financial report a few times, is there some way to eliminate those pages from printing? Because I'm pretty sure I have 3 or 4 copies of this at home.
It would have to be done on a case-by-case basis, or I could print cancel off just the cover page of the agenda, and you could access the attachments online. If council would prefer that pages, attachments over a certain length be omitted from the printing, that's also okay, and so that's something we can look at and talk about.
I would assume that some of it's in our procedural.
At the moment, it's just the whole agenda needs to be printed and supplied to council. So that's something that we can look at either through policy or through an amendment to the council procedure bylaw.
If we could do that, because it's got to be very tedious for you, and like I say, I know I've got a stockpile of the financial report if any of the public would like one.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Reed. Anything else? Okay, I need someone to move that the June 2020 financial update report dated June 12, 2020 be received for information. Who will so move? Councillor Hoffel, second Councillor Howe. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Item 10.3, deferral of the 2020 tax sale and extension of the tax sale redemption period. Gotta hurt. Anything else? Any comments from staff?
Through the mayor, just to be clear, and it is outlined in one of the memos from the province, you can't do it on a case-by-case basis. If council chooses to defer the tax sale, it's for everybody. If council chooses to extend the redemption period, it's for any of the properties that went for last year's tax sale.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Reid.
Oh, sorry, I kind of jumped the gun there. Are we asking for the deferral? Does that have to do with the postponement of when the taxes are due, or what's the purpose of asking for the deferral?
If I can say, it's essentially through COVID-19, it's one of the methods in which relief is given to taxpayers, tax sales, and so on and so forth. It's to allow for extra time. It obviously doesn't help us financially, but theoretically it allows individuals to comment further.
Well, and through the mayor, it's not that we lose anything in the end, it's the cash flow. We still have all of the same revenue, all of the same interest and penalties. It's just a matter of when the actual cash comes in.
But just as a side note, you keep in mind that we are bound, according to the legislation, that we will have to pay the educational and we have to pay the regional districts. We don't. So while we allow many factions a lot of extra time, those two areas, which is a substantial amount, is not allowed for us. Okay? Any further questions? I'll say, so I need someone to move that the staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to defer the 2020 tax sale to September 27th, 2021. And that staff be, I can do both on one resolution, and that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to extend the redemption period for all properties that have a redemption period ending in 2020 to September 27, 2021. Who will move? Councillor Hoffel, second Councillor Leach. No further discussion, I'll call a question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. Item 10.4, 2020 municipal campground opening. Staff?
I don't have a whole lot to add beyond what was in the report. Just it's been a difficult spring for the operations of the campground, obviously, and operations in general. The plan we put together is basically the most sort of the best way that we could figure out in order to get the campground open and still keep the campers safe, to keep the general public safe, and to limit the use of the campground area for day use for the time being, because that's one of the things that we are concerned that we would have difficulty managing in terms of possible transmission of a COVID virus. So it's a pretty limited opening. It's going to be self-contained campers only to start with, but at least it gets the thing open, and we'll see how things develop. If perhaps later in the summer, if things go well, perhaps we can expand the opening to beyond what we're able to do to start the season.
Thank you. Councillor Weed?
With the campground opening for partial camping, I guess we'll call it partial camping, glamping, are we still working with First Nations on the boat launch? It's not opening right away with the campground, is it?
I can report on that as well. I met with, I went up to TCLIT band office Friday and met with Susan Napoleon and Sean Scotchman and a number of Janice Whitney, a number of other individuals in the administration there. They do want to get the boat launch open. They're trying to now target July 1st for an opening of the boat launch. Now this is only the boat launch. This is not the beaches.
Sorry if I can say, and that's the boat launch at Seton.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about
I'm sorry.
in the campground.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My mistake. Okay, so the boat launch at Seton, or at the campground, sorry, is so the demand there is primarily from sturgeon fishermen. So what we've done is we've put together a plan for that as well. Had discussions, Jeremy has been involved in these discussions in a big way as well. Had discussions with, and the mayor, I might add. I think the mayor and Jeremy and Chief Edwards kind of set out a framework in discussions with the commercial operators for what we sort of envisioned for a season to get them in the water and get things going. So we did actually met with them this week. The operators that were in attendance, the guides agreed to the plan that we presented to them. I don't think we have that included as a report because it was fairly recent as part of this, but they were able to get started this past weekend under the conditions that that were set out for them. And it'll be basically in accordance with sort of the wishes of Chief Edwards. We're going to limit the access down there to local guides and local residents only. What they do once they get on the river, we have no control of, but we can manage access to that site. So they'll have to have, there's a plan in place to try to ensure that people are screened before they come into the campground area, and that it's only local operators that are operating in there.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Councillor Hopple.
Through the mayor, Ben, can you tell us, like, are we taking any advantage? We had talked about taking advantage of this downtime and making all-round sites down there, so people could just move their trailers in and stay year-round, like, and have those year-round sites. Are we working on that at all?
Through the mayor, the short answer is no, we haven't. We haven't had a chance to do that. And I'm aware that that's a goal that we'd like to work towards, but this year has been just chaotic in terms of trying to manage things in general. So we haven't really had a chance to move forward with that. There's another goal that we'd like to see down at the campground was to add some more service sites down there as well as hopefully get the campground at some point, get that open year round if possible. But no, the short answer is that we haven't been able to get much done there.
Councillor Howell.
So if there's any resurgence of COVID, I know that, I wonder, is the closing of the campground and the closing of the rec center as we move into the next agenda item sort of covers all of this. If we need to pull back and start closing down some of the access to some of these facilities again, are we basing that, and perhaps through the mayor, this is a question for the CAO, are we working with the federal and provincial based decisions, or is there going to be a plan by the district in terms of how we'll go about that process?
If I may, the experience that we had in the first shutdown will certainly be easier the second time around because the second and third and fourth wave. But just like the first time, we'll be following the direction of the provincial health officer. So as you may have become aware, that the closure of all private campgrounds wasn't actually mandated. But most private campgrounds chose to align themselves with the direction that the province was taking on prudence. Likewise with recreation centers, technically could have maintained the recreation centers open and simply implemented every possible measure to try to make it safe, but it would have been 2 people in the building at a time. So likewise, if there's a second wave and we need to shut down, we'll be following the guidance of the province and aligning our decisions with them, regardless of whether there's an explicit order to shut them down. We'll make a prudent decision and play it safe.
Thank you.
Okay. Then if I could say a few words about this. In keeping, and I'll qualify it, even though I said I didn't have to, obviously safe and the appropriate protocol. And I think that staff has done a darn good job of developing those protocols, and especially for the sturgeon fishing, for our boat launch. You can see the rec center is coming up next, and it is a lot of work. Obviously, you guys know my anxiety in the sense that there is a movement happening. And in my discussion and listening to the other mayors and regional districts on our weekly or bi-weekly calls with the minister, in terms of the pressure that's coming and the businesses, especially RVs, so on, you know, we're not getting the buses, and everybody said, oh, good. Well, from my perspective, I don't think the buses did much for us anyway. You all heard me hound on this thing, which I did at the SLRD. We were just merely, you know, a pit stop and a whatever. And yeah, they got some sandwich, but hey, the business from what I'm hearing is the RVs. And you look around the province, the sale of these things are happening. there is a market out there, and I'm anxious to gather that market as best we can. And I'm telling you, we've got one of the nicest campgrounds. From my perspective, what's really missing, obviously, is our ablution, you know, and that is the toilets, the showers, and the rest of it. Now, I would ask that council and staff consider our economic development liaison person to determine if we can put together something very quickly. And we can do that financially, either if it can't be granted, which takes time anyway, there's short-term loans if there's a payback to be there. And all I can tell you right now is that I've had experience. There are some beautiful ablution facilities, toilets, showers, whatever, that are pre-done in a 20-foot container or a 40-foot container. And that there could be a business case that for now, from the rest of the summer, we could draw a fair amount of business in there that has the potential to raise the level and then generate more income of our campground. And if it makes business sense, we should consider. If it doesn't, don't. Which would mean hiring an extra person or two to assure the cleanliness, da-da-da. But when you have something brand new, all white, all where it's easier to keep clean, and you may charge more for it, yada. So anyway, just to give you an idea where I'm coming from, I really feel that if we are not afraid to step out there, but not without good information first, we have the potential to really do some stuff between now and the end of the year. And I'd like staff to spend a bit of time and look into that. I know they're up to their ears and everything else, but hey, you watch that. There's pressure on those RVs inside BC, and they want to stay here. They want to come here. We're not going to stop them. And I just feel, you know, we can capitalize on that if we keep our business center on. That's my 2 cents for it. Okay. I will ask someone to move that the COVID-19 exposure control plan for Cayuga Campground be received and that Cayuga Creek Campground be open to the public on June 23rd, governed by the conditions set out in the COVID-19 exposure control plan. Who will move? Councillor Wiebe. Who will second? Councillor Howe. And I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, staff, for that. Thank you, council. Okay, item 10.5, Rec Center Facility Service Recovery Plan. Staff. Anything? Do you have the camera only on us or on this gentleman who happens to be wearing his shorts?
The camera can see the room.
Okay, then I'm happy.
I just want to let council know before we consider this very condensed report that before we reopen the facility, there's a much more comprehensive plan that has to be put in place, which I'm working on right now, which will take into consideration guidelines that are being outlined by each of the different sports associations, by the BC Parks and Recreation Association, by a number of other bodies that we have to take all these guidelines into consideration in order to get the comprehensive plan in place so that we can safely play pickleball and all these different activities and before we can open the arena and host minor hockey and the various, there's a lot of activities that happen in the building and each one of them has to have a plan in place. So it's quite a daunting task to actually, and each of these sports associations it's really only been within the last few weeks that a lot of them have actually come out with these new guidelines. So we haven't had an opportunity to put a more comprehensive plan in place. But what you see before you in the agenda is basically a very short form plan for how we'd like to see things unfold in the next few weeks and months. And by the fall, I'm hoping that we'll have the ice in the arena and we'll be hosting hockey activities, figure skating activities, public skating activities that will, unfortunately, it's certainly not going to be business as usual, but we'll have a busy place and in a very controlled environment and hopefully be able to bring some revenue back into the building because it's been a very dry few months for our little facility, I'm afraid.
Good, thank you. It's a lot of hard work in putting this together, and it's a massive undertaking. So I personally didn't expect that you folk would be able to come this quickly to at least get it started. And I think kudos to you guys for doing that. And with a full understanding that it's going to be gradual. I'm hoping beyond hope that obviously that conditions will change, but we can't plan for that. What is the council? Yes, Councilor Weaver.
I was a little concerned about our employees because I know we were down janitorial, maintenance, caretaker staff. So have we looked at that, or is that?
Well, in order to get the facility open, so we have ordinarily at this time of year, most of our seasonal staff aren't there anyway, so really the one full-time position that has been laid off is our custodian. So before we reopen the majority of the facility, before we open the doors to the public, we'll have to have a custodian in place. So we'll be recalling him or whoever comes back, or we'll have to post the job in sometime in early July. And we won't have a summer student this year. There won't be summer camp programs, that kind of stuff. So it's really just the one position that's affected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other? All right, I would require someone to move that the rec center facility service recovery plan be received and that staff be directed to proceed with reopening the rec center as outlined in the service recovery plan. Who will so move? Councillor Howe, second. Councillor Leach. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, staff and council. Item 10.6, request for release of funds from reserves. Yes.
Your Director of Public Works.
Hello, everyone. This is not an easy report for me to present, especially in a year with financial challenges. But I believe it's pertinent to do so, especially when transparency is so key for our community and council and staff. Last spring, a project was initiated by the previous Director of Public Works because there was a need to upgrade our SCADA system, which is a supervisory control and data acquisition system that is very important to all the infrastructure that Public Works takes care of. We felt, the previous director saw the need because the aging system that was not working very well here in town was putting quite a strain on Public Works, especially with regard to maintaining and operating the system, responding to alarms, etc. So the project was initiated in order to address those issues, and they have been addressed, and the system is working well now. Unfortunately, this project was not budgeted for accordingly. And so we're asking for a release of funds to cover the costs for ComCom Services, who did a very good job addressing the needs and fixing the system so that it's working properly now. Unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't budgeted for, and the community charter does not allow a municipality to make an expenditure that's not included in the financial plan. And so I'm here to ask for that request, or request those funds be released from reserves.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Howe?
How do we prevent this sort of thing from happening in the future, through the mayor to the CAO?
May I answer that?
Oh, sure.
We've already done that.
Of course you have.
All right. Sorry,
Well,
I didn't mean to. Taken care of. That's good.
Beautiful.
I'm sorry, but
No.
go ahead. No.
No,
All right.
If I can speak to that, yeah, it does constitute maybe a lack of management or maybe mismanagement of keeping tabs on some of these invoices, and that the work and invoices being tracked accordingly. And as the mayor said, moving forward, we're going to do our best to make sure that we track these expenses, and of course we budget for them accordingly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hoffel?
So through the mayor, does this mean that it never came to council, or that it came to council? Because I was looking in the budget, and of course I was looking for ComCom Services, and that would have gone up to tender, so I obviously didn't find that. But I was wondering, did it come to council for acceptance on the budget, but then we just never had the invoices to pay it, or did it never come?
I think it was, it had a lot to do with it being on the operational side, and I think if we had gotten regular invoices or if they had been tracked properly, it could have worked in the operational side of things. But because it wasn't necessarily tracked, and again, the CFO and the interim capital project manager did not know about the work that was being done, which made it more difficult to track and manage.
But it would still have to come, something like this would still have to come to council, wouldn't it?
If it was budgeted for as a project, but I don't think it necessarily became a project until we saw the big bill.
And the other thing, Councillor Hoffel, we got to remember that obviously when we pass the budget, it is not cast in stone and there can be changes.
For sure.
Obviously, we don't like to do that or don't want to do that, but it can be done. We've been warned by our CFO many times and our CEO that council has that ability. Yes, Councillor Lee?
Maybe this is not super appropriate, but I'm just curious, when the system was not functioning, ballpark, how many, like I said, rough ballpark, how many hours of staff time do you think it was interfering with it not working? Just to justify. Like,
well, just for an example, when the SCADA system wasn't working properly, especially with regard to alarm callouts, it's very dangerous. There's kind of a boy cried wolf issue with that as well. If you're getting a lot of what I call phantom, and I've had them before as an operator, phantom calls, you tend to not take them as seriously, which can be very dangerous, especially with our infrastructure. And we have a very complex system here in Lillooet. So SCADA and the communication between those systems and the ability to troubleshoot and actually acquire the proper data for regulatory is very important for Public Works, but also the community as a whole.
Councillor Weep?
Oh, I got a good question.
We are in dire anticipation.
If we refuse this, is Amazon going to suffer?
Sorry, through the mayor, if council chooses not to accept this resolution, then ComCom doesn't get paid.
Okay.
What are the repercussions to the district for that?
They have completed the work.
Yes.
I'm just.
And you're jeopardizing your future relationship.
Indeed.
And you're also not going to bother
I'm just
bringing the reputation of the District of Lillooet into disrepute. So,
I'm just having a no night.
okay, thank you.
That's all I'm saying.
And I must say that the work that was done well, and it did address many problems in the system.
Great reports.
Right there.
You haven't said hello.
I'll need someone to move the release of $22,500 from the Water Capital Reserve and $7,500 from the Sewage Capital Reserve for a total of $30,000 to cover the cost of services rendered by ComCom Services to be approved. Who moves? Councillor Weeb, second Councillor Howe. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council and staff. Item 10.7, update on capital projects.
Well, again, so this report is mainly to show council and the community and staff that we are still working diligently towards getting some of these projects done. So I'll just quickly touch on each project. I know we don't have a lot of time. So the GIS aerial photography project is moving along very well. We are about 2/3 done of the project. That has been overseen by Don Darling and Darren Wicke. This GIS aerial photography through MapCon is the company, is going to be very important later when it comes to our asset management project and project planning. We should see that project squared up from the GIS side in September, so we're anxiously awaiting that. The fire station back apron upgrade is complete. Final invoices have been received, and we are sorry, and paid, except for a small holdback for maintenance, just in case something were to arise in the future, which is always a safe practice. And again, a lot of the preliminary work has been done by Don Darling for these projects, so just a shout out to Don. Airport fuel tank replacements, we're currently awaiting notice from the BC Air Access Program for a grant application, which was submitted March 31st, 2020. This is another important project, as we know that airports are very important for things like medevac and especially could be tourism as well, so future revenue generation as well. The 7th Avenue Drainage and Pressure Reducing Valve Project, again, a lot of preliminary work has been done. The grant has been resubmitted so that we can secure the proper funds. But I did want to make a note that this is one of the most important projects for protecting our infrastructure, and it's definitely not going to the wayside. We're going to be focusing on this project in the near future. Water metering program. There's some work being done now, mainly with getting a baseline, seeing what meters are working, what meters aren't working, what needs to be done to get the meters working, and also some public education with a metering program as well, and some advocacy in that respect. So that's it as far as the capital projects go.
Okay. I need someone to, oh, sorry, any questions or comments from council? Councilor Huffle?
Through the mayor, the metering program, all meters we still have some that need to be put in, correct?
Yes, we're about.
There's still.
Sorry, 95%.
Okay, 95% we're at, so we still have 5%. And then there was a battery replacement issue. So some of the batteries were dying and we were wondering if they were under warranty. Did we find out if they were under warranty and will they be replaced?
Well, since they were installed, a couple of companies have been bought out, as does happen. Companies change hands, so a lot of the preliminary work right now is finding out whose responsibility it is. KTI is the company that we have tracked down, who actually sells exclusively the census meters, or the census heads, which is the transponder side of the meter. So we're in talks right now with our tech support to see if what's available for us and if we have tech support available still.
Okay, so can we hold off on the 25,000? If we're gonna address options to assess the viability of implementing the metering program, would we not hold off until we have that tech support, find out if the batteries are indeed covered, and then replace them and get the other 5% in before we spend that 25,000?
And that's exactly
Okay.
what I hope to get through the report there. That we would this would be the first step in getting the metering program or assessing the viability of the metering program.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other? Okay, I need someone to move that the update on capital projects report dated June 17, 2020 be received for information. Councillor Weed, Councillor Howe second. Call the question. Those in favor, carried. Thank you, staff, and thank you, council. Item 10.8, update on operational projects.
Hello again. So again, this report is mainly to show that some of these projects, we are still, even though it's a tough year, we are still pushing forward and we are still working towards maintaining our system and getting it up to where it needs to be. The first one is the wastewater treatment plant inspection and maintenance. We're working closely with Urban Systems. And the next one coming up would be the clean out and repair of the aerators, which is very important for proper wastewater treatment. There is a long process to that, although because there's a lot of regulatory involved and a lot of notification to stakeholders, etc. So we're working through that with Urban Systems right now. Right now, the tentative date is August to do the bypass and clean out. But we're prepared and we've been taking safety measures into consideration. And we feel that we're ready to do the clean out, and it may equate to some cost savings with hydro, as a aeration system that's working properly does not put as much draw on the system. So there's a lot of benefits to this clean out, and we're hoping it goes very well. Sanitary sewer flushing. I know this has been an issue of contention in the past, but we do have a line along a CN right-of-way that does need immediate attention, and next week we're going to be starting with a contractor to flush that line and get it cleared so that there's no risk to any infrastructure or anyone downstream. Summer students, as everyone knows, we can get a summer student grant this year, which is putting a bit of a strain on Public Works. But we'd like to thank the public and staff and council for being patient with the amount of growth that we see happening now, especially with some of the rain that's been happening. And we're doing our best to maintain the situation. Certified water treatment plant operator. We just recently had an operator who's become fully certified. Level 2, which is a great achievement for the district, as we haven't had one since 2015. So we'd like to congratulate our operator for, first of all, achieving that certification, which also may equate to some cost saving for the district as well, and self-sufficiency, which is very important for Public Works. Campground security measures, which Bain spoke a little bit to. Public Works has been assisting with building of gates and setting up barriers to ensure that all safety measures are being considered at the campground. And I think Public Works did a really good job with addressing those issues in the campground. And that's it for operations side. Sorry, I tried to be quick on that one.
Thank you, Council. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, first of all, for the work that you guys are doing. I can imagine. Regarding Public Works, the Public Works Department, and the lack of students, the summer students, and help, what, for you, Mayor, what is the plan for keeping walkways clear? Because we do have a lot of elderly that are starting to get out now that it's summertime. And if anything's blocking those ways, I mean, maybe perhaps this is a question for the CAO in terms of bylaw enforcement and overgrowth for other people's yards that would be taking over some of the walkway. Do we have a plan in place for that, or is it considered?
Bylaw enforcement is complaints driven. There's not a regular routine of seeking out these issues. So we do have to rely upon the public's eyes and ears to notify us of problem areas. That is the policy that's in place. It's the most common policy in especially smaller communities where it's simply unaffordable to have active enforcement. But I do believe the bylaws are in place that people have a responsibility in front of their properties to keep it clear. And I have directed staff to put the onus on the owners quite aggressively, but with great seriousness, that it is a responsibility and the district's not going to do their job for them.
In philosophy, moral responsibility.
There we go. Responsibility. Thank you, serious.
Public Works has responded to some complaints in that regard, and usually we'll find the time to address it, especially if it's an immediate need or a safety concern.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the operation part? Okay.
No.
I'll ask someone who. Sorry.
I'm getting that look tonight, and I keep forgetting to say through the mayor. Through the mayor, and I know it's not particularly operations, but I'm really glad to see that we have a level 2 water person. That's great. Can you very quickly and briefly tell me the difference between the level 1, level 2, all the,
Sure.
Does it go by hours or by education or both? Or
All of those. Usually the EOCP, which is the regulatory body for classifying a plant, it'll tell you what you need. So basically, based on what's in your plant and how many people you service, they'll compile kind of like a point system to see what you need to sufficiently run your plant. So if they decide that you have a level 1 plant, you're only required to have a level 1 operator. If through the point system, depending on what your plant is like, it will require level 2 all the way up to level 4, typically.
So are we, through the mayor, are we a level 2 plant or do we still have work to be done?
We are a level 2 plant, so we are in a good place now where we have a level 2 operator. I myself am also a level 2 water treatment plant operator, so we have some backup there as well.
Oh, terrific. And to Bain and you and Tony, like, great reports. This is just, I think these are great. It was just great reading on Father's Day.
Dare I ask, are you through, Councillor Weed?
Well, for the moment.
Thank you, okay. Thank you, Councillor Weed. I will now put the resolution on the table. I need someone to move that the update on operational project report dated June 17th, 2020 be received for information. Who so moves? Councillor Leach, second. Councillor Hoffel. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thanks. Now, right after 10.9, we'll have a short recess for about 5 or 10 minutes. So it's been a long evening and a long agenda, and we'll keep everyone fresh. 10.9, council rep to the Lillooet Board and BMX Association. If Councillor Weed can just enlighten us in terms of an update on that association.
Oh, on our association. Okay, we have 6 members on the board. I am the chairperson of the board just because with everything else that I do in the community, I'm the retired lady that has no job or any responsibilities or children. So I get to take on these jobs. We have recently applied for a $70,000+ grant with CN Rail. Hopefully we'll get something before they decide they don't like Lillooet anymore. And would like them to contribute, and I've applied for a few smaller grants just to kind of top that up to get the engineering and maybe close to having a shovel in the ground. And I think there'll be a report coming better at next meeting, so I guess if we need a council rep, I'm already there, so I just fill 2 boots, I guess.
Do I detect utmost passion in terms of you wanting?
You know what, this is a very passionate project of mine, and I am going to be on that skateboard with Lillooet on it the day that skateboard park.
That's why I brought it up, because the way you ended it, you said, I guess, I'm gonna have to be, I want to see some passion.
Oh, passion.
Councillor Hoffel?
Oh, I just want to see her on the skateboard.
Well, it might be that big one that we used to have in the parade.
Any other questions for Councillor Leach?
Just because I want to be cheeky. Well, what if I was also said having a no night?
Flatter, then we'll nominate you. I can put that on there on the table. If I'm having a no night, we'll just nominate you.
Short break. Yeah. All right, Councillor, are we done?
Well, you haven't nominated me.
I need someone. Nobody's nominated you yet. We're going to keep going at this rate. We may not. Anybody else interested in becoming the council rep on the BMX Society?
Oh, losers.
All right.
You're doing such a good job.
Okay, order. I'll let you use this thing. Thank you. All right. I want somebody to move that Councillor Weed be appointed as a District of Lillooet's representative to the Lillooet Board and BMX Association. Who so moves? Councillor Hoppel, second. Councillor Howe. Call the question. Those in favor? Thank you, Councillor Weed, for being on that board. You're outvoted. We will take a short recess, folks. Thank you. Meeting back to order. Under item 11, bylaws and resolutions, we have 11.1, which is liquor and cannabis regulation branch referral for an application for a liquor primary structural change application for a liquor primary patio at 1237 Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this resolution in this report looked a little more daunting than this item actually is. The LCRB does appreciate a level of detail when they're making their decisions, because if they don't feel that adequate consultation has been undertaken, they will undertake their own consultation, which adds on to everyone's timeline. So that's hence the extremely detailed report and detailed suggestion for resolution. This is for a structural change at 1237 Main Street so that they can alter the floor area of their liquor license to include an outdoor patio. In terms of public notification, it's been a little difficult without the newspaper, but this was posted on the Facebook page, which did garner many responses, none of which are reflected here because they were asked to respond by submitting in writing. Signs were posted on the corner of Main Street and 12th, which should have been easily viewable to anybody who lived in the area. With the DVP that will be coming up later, that also has to do with the site, a notification package was mailed with those letters that have to go up to the DVP anyways, to the properties within 100 meters of the parcel boundary of 1237 Main. To date, we have received 31 responses back. I grouped them into ones that were within 200 meters of the parcel boundary and ones that either did not indicate their address or were clearly outside. The one that we received from inside the 200-meter buffer was opposed. They cited noise. And then the other 30 from outside the 200-meter buffer were in support of the application, and the reason they gave for that was general community benefit. It would be a good visual draw and community draw to deal with COVID, and also long-term right at the gateway of the community at the top of Station Hill. So in terms of the resolution, the second and that, I left a bunch of blanks in there, so I will fill that in with a total of 1 response was received from nearby 200-meter radius residents. 1 letter was received in opposition to the application, citing concerns of noise. A total of 30 responses were received from residents exceeding the 200-meter radius. 30 were in support of the application, citing community benefits. This resolution is the resolution format that is prescribed by the LCRB, which is why it's a little different from what you're used to seeing. But they do like to see by council resolution that you did consider the location and the person capacity and hours of operation, as well as the views of the residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Weave?
I have a question just on their application or whatever, and it's just because I'm sure if I could read diagrams, I would have figured it out. And I'm assuming it's feet, but on page 214, it says fencing will be between 4 and 5 in height. Is that 4 and 5 inches, or is that supposed to be 4 and 5 something in height?
I'm going to assume that that's going to be feet.
Okay, well, I was assuming that, but I couldn't figure it out on the little drawings.
Well, it's not going to be meters.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Any other comments, questions? I'm going to read this in its entirety because it is important to us, right?
Mm-hmm. And
I don't want to fluff it over.
No, and council, this is kind of a standard resolution that brings in the considerations that council is supposed to make. Council is welcome to change any of the wording if they would like.
All right. I'm going to ask this, and all the and that's come together.
Yes.
It's all one resolution.
Yes.
I want somebody to move that the council of the District of Lillooet has considered the following: the location of the establishment, the person capacity and hours of liquor service, And that council comments on the prescribed criteria as follows. Noise is not expected to be an issue because of the seasonal nature of the outdoor portion of the establishment. The district's nuisance bylaw 2006, number 273, which prohibits music or speech to be audible outside the property after 10 p.m., and a proposed amendment to the business license bylaw limiting the hours of operation of an outdoor patio to 10 p.m. regardless of liquor license permitted hours. If the application is approved, the impact is expected to be positive in that it will support the growth in tourism, community gateway appeal, and offer a new social venue for residents. An increase of the maximum capacity of 165 persons would not be supported due to the maximum parking capacity in the area already being met. The property is adjacent to property zone multifamily. However, this is characteristic of all Lillooet's commercial zones, and there being little buffer between the residential and commercial zones. A benefit of this is that many properties are within walking distance of the proposed license, further limiting the strain of parking availability and impaired driving. And that council comments on the views of the residents are as follows. A total of 1 response was received from nearby 200-meter radius resident and 0 in support of the application, citing 1 letter was received in opposition to the application, citing concerns about noise. Is that?
That's correct.
Noise? Have I got that correct so
Yes.
far? Right. A total of 30 responses were received from residents exceeding the 200-meter radius. 30 were in support of the application, citing numerous beneficial aspects, right?
Yeah.
And no letters citing concerns. There were no concerns.
Not from outside the 200-meter radius.
So I'm good there. And the views of residents within 100 meters of the proposed license expansion were directly solicited through mail-out in conjunction with a development variance permit application submitted on the same property. Due to COVID-19, residents were encouraged to submit comments in writing. The newspaper was not in operation due to COVID-19. However, the proposal was posted on Facebook and signage was placed at a visible corner of the property requesting further comments in writing. Residents were given 12 days from the first Facebook posting to provide their written views. Whereas direction notification was sent to properties within 100 meters, council considered all feedback. However, response were grouped by those within proximity, 200 meters to the establishment, and those who are not. And further, that council recommendation does not recommend, I'm assuming council recommends the approval of the license change for the following reasons. Council recommends the issuance of the license. Council believes the majority of residents in the area support the issuance of the license, providing the closing hours. The outdoor portion of the license is no later than 10 p.m., whether by condition on the license or through local government bylaw. The establishment will create a welcoming, social, and vibrant atmosphere at the gateway to the community. Who will so move? Councillor Weed, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? Thank you. I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council. It will be a good contribution to our community. I hope they have a good onion ring for the last one. Item 11.2, development variance permit, DVP 20-002 to waive parking requirements of zoning bylaw number 5454. Yes, stop.
Would you like to add any more numbers onto that bylaw, Mr. Mayor? So this is a development variance permit for the same address, 1237 Main Street. Generally, the applicant would have a chance to address council at this point. The applicant is on the line, but has indicated that he is fine not making a statement at this time, but is available for questions if anybody has any questions of the owner. So this is one of those unfortunate circumstances where a bylaw doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room and actually has contradictions that are standard in poorly drafted bylaws. It's the nicest way I can say that. For instance, the parking requirements have parking requirements for hotel, restaurant, or bar, club or lounge, or pub or lounge, and none of those are defined appropriately. So there's a section in the zoning bylaw, which is standard in all zoning bylaws, that say where there is contradiction in regulations that the most restrictive one has to apply. Unfortunately, through this process, that wasn't caught the whole way. So at one point I had told the applicants they needed 12 parking spaces and then 24 parking spaces, because all of this information is kind of spread out throughout the bylaw, which is why staff are recommending that this variance be approved. Because if staff can't make heads or tails of the bylaw, then the public shouldn't be expected to as well. I have already started drafting a new zoning bylaw to address some of these issues. At which point I will probably be less supportive of some of the variances until someone picks apart my horrible writing. But in the meantime, I do believe that with the parking spaces that already exist, it's been functioning well so far. They are not actually requesting to increase their seat numbers. Their liquor license allows a certain amount. They're not looking to expand that, just expand their floor area. So staff are recommending that DVP 20-002 be approved.
Council, any comments, concerns? Councilor Weed?
I'm feeling like a one-woman show tonight. I'm just curious, when were those bylaws written? Because since then, with all the, DUI and carpooling and no smoking and all of these things, it would seem that people get dropped off in places if they're going to have a few drinks, or they go in a group and have a DD. So really, when were they written, these parking things?
This bylaw.
Wait, hold, pardon me. It's through the mayor.
Oh, through the mayor.
And the mayor will deal with this.
Okay.
All right. You folk of all should remember that one, because I recall you guys really doing battle with the bylaw, wanting to get $10,000-$15,000 for parking, so on and so forth. That's number one. And number two, it should be noted that this kind of was derived out of Victoria. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. So if you're going to denigrate our bylaw approach, that's where it came from. Okay, this one, right? You guys from Victoria? Just thought I had.
If I may. Through the mayor, to answer the first question, it was drafted in 2017 and passed in 2018. It is very clear that this bylaw was, there may have been some intentions of tailoring it for a little bit, but the result was very much regulations for a town 2 to 3 times this size. This town is very walkable. So the requirements for parking are very onerous.
See, there's the common sense. That's what I want to remind a councillor, because these councillors fought hard against this overreaching approach to the bylaw 454, the zoning, and it was, these guys did an admirable job of taking it off. So I'm just jogging your memory and making it.
I understand that it was rewritten to 17, 18. I get that, but for some reason I'm thinking it was little bits and pieces picked from something written in 2002. Or something like that. Is that
through the mayor? That's not uncommon for a certain quality of bylaw drafter.
Good. I wanted that to come. Thank you, Councillor Weed. We got that up for the record. Thank you. All right. I need someone to move that DVP 20-002 to waive the requirements of an additional 24 on-site parking spaces as prescribed in zoning bylaw 2018, number 454, section 46.3, for pubs/lounges uses be approved. Who will so move? Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howe. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, item 11.3. This is a zoning bylaw amendment to clarify regulations for cannabis operations. Before I turn it over to staff, I just want you guys, I want council to be aware that we're fortunate to have Mr. Taylor and his background in terms of knowledge of cannabis operations, regulations, obviously his pedantic nature with regard to bylaws and zoning, which is in good stead to keep us whole and to keep us legal and to keep us on the right track. And at the same time, cleaning up a lot of messes. You guys, before I turn it over to Steph, you folks remember one of the main reasons I wanted to get on the SLRD was at the time in 454, the cannabis was the primary concern in terms of redoing the zoning bylaw. That's how it was presented to your council back then. And rather than doing an addendum, which I thought hindsight would have been the right thing, make an addendum to handle the cannabis coming in. And I recall a few of you asked that at that time as well, rather than doing the whole thing. And I said we all would be looking and taking lessons learned from what other communities are doing and what they're up against. And you people have been reporting back things such as Cache Creek, other places. The one thing that was missing that I had intended to do was to travel to, the Lower Mainland. There was that court challenge, and for a whole week, UBCM let us know that regarding the cannabis regulation and growth inside the community. Sorry, I just got. But the bottom line is that I'm really happy that this is coming forward to us, and I'm happy that we're looking at doing what's best for this community, and more so taking lessons learned from the other communities that are hitting up against things. And as I say, we're fortunate to have Mr. Taylor, who is well versed in this and can give us some good guidance going forward. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Even after you called me a pedantic pothead. Since I started in January, it's been made clear from council that they've been interested in having at least some regulations in place. There have been some in the zoning bylaw, but they were more use provisions of where the growing of cannabis could take place, but it didn't put any sort of limits on that. So under the current bylaw, you could feasibly have a industrial style building for the processing or growing of cannabis on pretty much any ag land. It doesn't matter whether it's ALR or not. What the new Agricultural Lands Commission, new changes to the Agricultural Land Commission Act and the Agricultural Land Reserve General Regulations allow is it designates the growing of cannabis specifically as a farm use, but then says that above and beyond that, a local government can prohibit anything other than growing in the ground. So that's what I've proposed here, is that anything that is grown in the ground we can't deal with, so I'm not going to touch it, but we are going to limit it, proposing to limit it to just land within the ALR. It can't be grown indoors unless it's in a building that has a completely soil foundation. So basically a greenhouse. It's still being grown in the ground with a structure around it, or in a structure that existed prior to July 2018. That was built for the purposes of growing crops in it. And these are all right out of the Agricultural Land Reserve General Regulations. I have received some feedback from the Ministry of Agriculture on these amendments, and they have requested a few changes just for clarity. Specifically, I had this in as a permitted use only in the ag zone, but they did bring to my attention that we do have some land not zoned agriculture that is within the Agricultural Land Reserve, and we cannot prohibit that. So if we do have a rural residential property or an industrial or commercial, I could list all of them, within the Agricultural Land Reserve, they can do farming as long as it's a designated farm use, which the growing of cannabis is. So I do need to make that change before we can go to public hearing. So I am going to request a slight change to the staff recommendation to only give this first reading Then I can bring back the appropriate changes that have been requested from the ministry to second reading, and then we can proceed to a public hearing if that is how council wishes to go.
Councillor Hopple.
Sorry, you're going really quickly for me. So does that mean that if I was to have a residential house within the ALR, that I could have, that I'd be allowed to have one of these greenhouses, or
You would
so to
be,
speak now?
yes,
And that would change or not change?
that would not change.
That would
We
not
cannot stop the cultivation of cannabis within the ALR. We can stop the processing,
Right.
which is often what those big industrial buildings are.
Okay,
Um,
even if my property wasn't ALR? Or
Oh, no,
within?
we can stop it if it's any land zoned agriculture that is not within the ALR. You will not, under this proposed bylaw, you will not be able to, your cannabis operations would not be a permitted use.
To grow.
To do anything,
In the ground or not in the ground?
anything at all.
Just to be clear, I want everyone to be aware of that.
No.
Are you complete?
Yeah, I'm good.
Councillor Weed?
Through the mayor to Mr. Taylor, we all know that I'm directionally challenged. I have no idea where this is. Like, can you kind of explain?
Most of that
Please.
is the east side of the river. It is
Okay.
oriented north-south.
Okay. So this is our industrial area, so to speak?
Most of it is to the east of the industrial area on the hillside. Most of it is zoned agriculture already. There are a few overlaps with some rural residential zones, and I believe some overlaps with one or two of the industrial zone parcels. But within the district, we only have about 33 parcels that are within the ALR, varying sizes.
Okay.
I do believe that some of them right along the river, which might be zoned, and I'm sorry, it's escaped my brain at the moment. I do believe they're zoned rural residential, and they're also within the agricultural land reserve. However, it's not uncommon for agriculture to be permitted in rural residential zones.
Okay, and this area over here?
That's just past the airport.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so it's almost immediately abutting the airport.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? I think this will be good, and it would be good to have a public hearing on this as well, so I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to ask someone to move the zoning bylaw amendment number 220-009 be introduced and read for a first and second time.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just from my previous comment, if we could just read this the first time and then not schedule the public hearing, just so I can make the changes requested by the ministry. This way it is at least on the books, and we can hold any building permits if we have to.
Say first time and leave it at that.
Yes.
Okay. I require someone to move that the zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 2020-009 be introduced and read a first time. Who will so move? Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howell. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to works in progress, which happens at the beginning of every month. So we'll wait for the beginning of next month. Under notice of motion 13.1. Councillor Howe requests the council consider directing staff to draft a bylaw to regulate operation hours of outdoor patios. Councillor Howe?
Oh, well, I feel that this has already been addressed.
Good, okay, I just wanted to give you the opportunity, because you didn't ask to have it taken off the thing, so I didn't want to preclude anything there, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Mr. Taylor.
I did mention in the report for the license expansion that this might be being considered. From the conversation with the councillor when she requested the notice of motion, this is more for getting council to direct staff to actually do that work, to draft a bylaw to limit the hours of the patio. Because if you direct staff to do that work, then it's justification to push back the timelines of some of the other things we're working on. So rather than me or staff arbitrarily choosing which things to kind of push off. At least we know that this is a council priority, and then we can produce this first.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So I carry on, Councillor Howell.
Okay, so my recommendation is that council directs staff to draft a bylaw regulating the hours of operation of commercial outdoor patio liquor sales to 10 p.m.
Councillor Howell moves. Who will second? Councillor Weed. Call the question. Those in favor? Against, if any? Carried. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Howell, and thank you, Councillor. Okay, report from the mayor. Have I got a report for you? So, on June 2nd, had a meeting with our MP, Brad Viss, and many topics of discussion, cultural center, obviously, because warming them up for potential federal funding to come once our business plan is initiated and completed and hopefully accepted by this council and then the First Nation councils. Talked about economic recovery approach, where he can help assist us from the federal level in terms of gaining funds type things here. Another thing I discussed with them that I brought up is electoral boundaries. I'm just opening it up with you because it's an issue with me in terms of we're caught in the middle. We're between TNRD and SLRD. Health is on the one side, the other in terms of MLA and MP, and he actually agreed. He felt that it would be in Lillooet's interest to have the electoral boundaries reset to go farther west, which kind of is where my personal feeling in music theaters, and the same would go with regard to our provincial MLA. Just exploring that and bringing it to council before anything is done, because I don't think a little old community is going to be allowed to dictate where the electoral boundaries are to go. So we just have to find out who is in charge and what buttons to push, and if we can lobby for support, you never know, it might be worth a try. June 4th was Minister Robinson's bi-weekly call for mayors and regional districts, and Premier Horgan was in attendance. The Premier stated that there's $1.5 billion made available for recovery, and BC still holds a very good credit rating and has the ability to borrow the funds at reasonable rates. It's a good thing. He states that startup costs are in the mix. Okay, so staff's got to get on the pedal and on the bicycle and see where we come. Minister Robinson and the Premier were happy with the level of cooperation by all over the period, and it is important how we work together. These are soft words, a sustainable economic recovery. Interestingly, West Vancouver brought up the ability to tax unused properties, and it was turned down flat. Vancouver is the only community that has the ability to tax non-used properties, because I thought that was something that council may want to consider in the future, because we need people to start doing something with their property. So West Van and Barrett, they have up to 60 multi-million-dollar homes that are not, what do you call it, not being residential at the time. So you can see where they're coming from. On June 8th, at a meeting with the local sturgeon fishing group, or CAO, Chief Edwards at Sequoia grounds to discuss plans and concerns surrounding the opening of the boat launch, with which our manager of REC has already briefed you on. On June 15th, I attended the kickoff meeting with the rest of you and our staff with our economic recovery liaison, Suzanne Denbach, in our chambers. On June 16th, I attended the Lillooet Rod and Gun Club meeting to see what more our Prime Minister was going to do with regard to our long guns and long rifles. On June 18th was another bi-weekly call with Minister Robinson, and a number of things were addressed at the time. The curve maintained is flattened, according to Dr. Bonnie Henry. Some of these are giving you our statements that came from her. Some of them are soft words, but there's a lot of meaning in the back that we've got to develop. She says, we must manage the opening of our economy very carefully, and we need the economic recovery. We want to grow innovative economy for our people. It's nice words, okay, but it's an area that I personally like to push. Okay, let's get innovative. Let's go see if the words follow up into activities. Keeping in mind there's $1.5 billion that's sitting there that they've told us about. Said we must be cautious in our recovery. We need to take care of each other. Given, how are we going to recover and hold on to our core values? And the thing is, we've got to understand our core values. Not easy, and we must be resilient, and we are strong. We're working together. Her ministry is going to be issuing a survey to promote and share ideas. They'll be hosting town halls, this is virtually right now, around the province to engage all residents and promote input. So they're going to be out there dragging ideas in. In July, our bi-weekly calls with regional mayors and the regional districts will break up into combined similar-sized communities to assure emphasis and ideas to share can be more applicable, which is a good thing. It's hard to sit there, Lillooet, and be asked, you have any questions? And you've got West Vancouver, North Vancouver, you have Burnaby, all those kind of people type of thing, and saying, but I think the CAO can, our premier did actually mention our community's name. So we got some recognition.
We made an impression.
That's right. So these bi-weekly calls will be in smaller groups, and basically it's going to be of similar size, which kind of makes sense. So they're going to group us instead of us belonging to the Southwest or Central region. Similar sized communities will meet in groups, smaller groups with her on those calls and be able to start wrestling a few things to the ground and see what answers we can get out of them. We must now use best efforts to have in-person meetings and move efforts to engage public more in our meetings in a safe manner, of course. Distancing for public safety and accountability for us to get there. I think there was another, what do you call it, regulation or
ministerial order.
Another order, right, that's come out. So it's something that I want us to seriously think of, and all that came to my mind is, we probably could do public meetings, but it'd have to be in the big rec center, right, where everyone is socially distanced. And then obviously you guys are gonna have to learn how to shout like me, or maybe staff can find emergency funding from the EOC or whatever it is to get us microphones and the like. But we made staff and communities have made a definite commitment to try their best to do it. Obviously, if it's felt we can't do it safely, we won't do it. But I think we can, and that's something staff should bring to us at an important part of time. And if you can glean any free 100% funding to get us there, Bob's your uncle. Okay, the other thing is that she said municipal finance bylaw can be passed in one day or one meeting, and the rest of you should revert back to previous procedures as soon as it is deemed safe and appropriate, which is why I think Mr. Taylor has said we've got to look at public, what do you call it, the
public hearing?
Public hearings, yeah. So we should give that, we have to give that our best efforts, and I have confidence that staff will lead us in that. Gaming grants are to be made easier to apply for, but that's essentially the social services sector, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But there's $5 million capital projects to be considered there. Where that goes, I don't know. But social services. Amateur sports groups want to open and must follow WorkSafe BC. So that's the challenge I think that Mr. Gare is going to have in getting us back there. There's an extension for emergency funding for childcare extended to the end of August. And she stated there's more flexibility for bars and restaurants to increase patrons with outdoor seating, and most importantly, the ability for them to temporarily purchase alcohol at wholesale prices. So there you go. What is coming? Lessons learned from this crisis, working from home and connectivity, and how to manage this. And that's the truth. I really feel that there is going to be a movement of people wanting to work from home, and especially if you look at not having to commute, from the along the Fraser Valley, whatever it is. And obviously from my perspective, we've got to market our community. We have, except I think you guys over here didn't have any internet and web service for a whole while. It doesn't bode well for our marketing plan to try and convince people in the Lower Mainland to buy and build houses up here and work, but that's an aspect we gotta capitalize on, and we can't let it go too far without it. And reiterated that the Premier told her, and they're telling us 1.5 billion for a recovery package to work with. And she says we want an economy that works for everyone. Yeah. Vancouver, of course, asked how to secure operating funding from this package. So keep track of what they're doing, and we're gonna follow along right behind. Okay, on June 21st, I attended a weeding work party at the East Lillooet Japanese Memorial Garden, and today I attended the Aboriginal Day Parade. That's it for me. Thank you. And Councillor Hoffel.
Well, can I just ask you a question? When you said any bylaw can be passed in one day, were you referring to a particular bylaw or?
Yeah, the finance. They're still allowing the municipal finance bylaw. We can pass that all in one day. All the rest, they want us to go through our previous normal procedures, so.
Okay.
So in other words, you can tell that their interest is more in the money than it is in everything else.
Okay, June 1st, I attended the regular council meeting and then the closed. June 4th, the Historical Society. So there was a meeting during a lunchtime, but unfortunately they did not have a quorum. So basic discussion was all that we did, and it was based on the COVID for the summer tourism. So again, no quorum, no decisions made. It was a relatively easygoing meeting, that one. June 11th, I attended the Lillooet Community Fund. We only had 2 submissions. One was approved as was in the agenda. And then we had a meeting, economic development meeting with Suzanne Denbeck. That was the first time I met her. And it's amazing how many times I've heard her name in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, she's going to be a huge asset, I think. Friday, June 19th, I happened to luck out and see the grads driving past in the old time car drive. So I hear that it wasn't widely promoted as they didn't want a whole lot of people gathering, but it was nicely done. So congratulations to all of them. And today I attended the Aboriginal Day Parade as well. And lastly, on a personal note, I went to the optometrist about 10 days ago because I was having all these headaches. And part of my problem was I have severely dry eyes. And what it is because they said that I look at a computer all day long, and then you go home and you're doing these Zoom meetings and you're doing the virtual world and all of that, and your eyes get really dry. So evidently you blink on an average 15 times in 1 minute. But when you're looking at a computer, you blink 60% less, only 6 times per minute. When your eyes get overly dry, it's like your skin getting dry and you get that white coat, and then you're straining to see everything, why you get the headaches. So my tip of the day is when you're on your virtual world or you're in your computer, take some time to blink, because now I'm doing these drops, but they're killing me. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Howell.
Thank you.
You got to better that one.
No. Thanks for the tip. June 3rd was part of the Lillooet Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, where the service agreement with the District of Lillooet was discussed. June 5th was the Tourism Lillooet meeting, where they discussed action items for current and post-COVID recovery, as Lillooet expressed. June 15th was the Tourism Lillooet meeting, once again, where they met actually with Suzanne Denbeck. And, right, that was that, okay. June 18th was in the workshop with Clean BC through the Ministry of Environment, whereby attendees made up of municipal staff representatives and elected officials were informed of Clean BC's prospective plans for their 2020 strategies and asked them to rank and as to rank them in hierarchy of importance. So it was not the workshop I had anticipated, but I'm sure they're pleased to be able to check off the box for municipal governance consultations. So good for them. That's me.
Thank you, Councillor. You did one up her on that.
I think that was much more interesting than dry eyes.
Councillor Lee.
All right, I'm still, don't have a whole lot to report. The swim club isn't meeting, Mizraki's not meeting. I do have a meeting coming up next week for the NDIT RAC committee, so I will have something more to report next meeting. And other than the economic development meeting, which everyone has spoken to, and I was able to just peek my head outside briefly while the Aboriginal Day Parade went today while I was at work. I was actually quite impressed. It looked really lovely and well organized, and it was neat to see. So yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Super exciting.
And thank you for gatekeeping our Amazon supply.
Yes, yes.
Muscles.
Good. Councillor Lee?
Shop now.
Councillor Reid hasn't done anything. Seeing as I missed the last council meeting, I should update a little bit. On May 27th, I did a Zoom SLRD board meeting and a committee of the whole meeting. And it was basically, should have had Joni there, because we had our report from Dunworthy with the audited financials, and yeah, it kind of just really dragged on, I must say. I was surprised to hear that 100% of the SLRD carbon credits comes from the Lillooet landfill. And that just rubs me a little wrong, so I don't know where I'm gonna go with that, but we have another meeting on Wednesday, so we'll see where it goes. And I'm also thinking, how is that going to change when we put our solar panels either on our rec center or on the ground behind our rec center or whatever the plan is, seeing as they're the ones with the money, do we just lose all these carbon credits to them? Kind of just a little tweak there for everybody. June 8th was a phone meeting with Gold Country, and we also did not have a quorum on the phone, but we were notified that we have Margaret is leaving, so they're looking for an office receptionist and administrative assistants, and I'm really glad there's no one on our staff that's interested in that. Also on June 8th, I met with Mr. Deniger and Mr. Taylor regarding bringing the skateboard park to a council meeting, which will be in July. I believe Mr. Deniger did take a picture of Mr. Taylor with my skateboard binder because his desk is such a mess, we may never find it again. But maybe it has a yellow Post-it on it, maybe.
I recall no such binder.
We have a picture. June 15th was at the meeting with Suzanne Denbeck regarding the kickoff for economic recovery, and I think it will be wonderful if all these groups work together and we just get something happening. And today I found out after the fact, because we did attend the Aboriginal Day Parade and we could have all went for lunch. Yeah, they had a lunch at the Friendship Center and we could have all, I'm like, well, I guess my invite's in the mail. I don't know, didn't know, whatever, but maybe next year we'll do that. And other than that, that was, yeah, basically it for me.
Thanks, Councillor Weeb. I feel Councillor Weeb should have something intriguing, let's put it that way, in terms of what the SLRD is doing specifically for the that specific project. I would ask that our CEO work with you to present that in a little bit formal fashion and
Yes.
everything, because it's important. And fortunately, our rep for SLRD is working closely with Area B and hopefully with Area A to keep the interests are. So I think this group would be looking forward to seeing what you come up with for the next one. Thank you, Councillor Weeb. 16.1, CAO report.
Thank you. Just a couple of updates about COVID reopenings, COVID-related reopenings. Playgrounds for children are open. We don't have the capacity to clean them every 5 minutes, even on a good day. So we're relying upon signage and mature oversight of parents. But we felt we couldn't maintain them as they were because they were taped off and the tape was being removed. So at least we got signage up warning users. Fraser River boat launch through the campground is open according to protocols that have been done in conjunction with the Shepawash. Cayush Creek Municipal Campground, as you've heard, is going to be open. That's the decision tonight, but it will remain closed for day use. The thinking on day use is that it's used very much in a park-like setting to have people gather in groups, probably too large is the nature of that. So that's a pretty big challenge for staff to manage that and just for the safety of the community and the users. So we're actually working with the CLECLIT on it because the same kind of issues are going to come up for Seton Lake Beach. So we're working hand in hand with them and been communicating constantly about how we're going to approach that when the time is right. But neither community is in a rush to do that because of the high level of risk associated with that. Seton Lake boat launch, as you know, aiming for July 1st. And then economic update, ECDEV, you met with, all council met with Suzanne Denbach at a workshop last week. Just to give you a little update on that. Some immediate actions that are being looked at is to, in the next 7 to 10 days, to do a resident sentiment survey. You've probably seen these from other communities, Kamloops, Kelowna, and so forth like that, where they get a feeling from the community what their openness is to inviting tourists to town and from where, right? Because we have to have the community consent, basically, before the district pumps money into trying to invite people from all over the province. If the community doesn't want them, that's something to consider in how we approach tourism. And as well, over the short term, working with the visitor center to figure out how to safely open up to visitors who are going to be here regardless, and working with them to come up with a database, an online database of what businesses are open and what there is to do in town. Then short term, like July, August, September, more surveying of residents and businesses, more about their feelings on broader topics related to coming out of COVID-19. We may go into phase 2, but how do we feel right now? What have we struggled with so that we can focus our efforts, both not just in economic development, but in other community initiatives, what groups we may work with or what changes we can make to our public spaces to try to address some of the sentiment that people have about their challenges. Suzanne will be doing a tour of businesses as well, in-person meetings with managers, starting initially with hospitality industry, because we need to know right away for the short-term actions, like we're talking about with Tourism Lillooet, about if we're going to be pushing tourism for Facebook, are the accommodations actually ready, willing, and wanting them to be here? If they're full up with BC Hydro workers, it may not actually be a good thing to spend money on. So she'll be spending some time starting next Monday, meeting with business owners one-on-one. And for some of the big businesses, key stakeholders or ones of intrigue, staff and council may go with her. Not-for-profit societies roundtable is step 3 in the short-term plan. In regards to the letter, I think which is coming up was item 17.3. It has actually been in the plan for economic recovery all the way back to the actual application to NDIT, that there be engagement with nonprofit sector. It's just starting with businesses, starting launching with council, and then engaging them in turn. Step 4 is going to be reaching out to the Scotland Community Economic Development representatives, followed by an audit of our online platforms. There's Lillooet BC, Visit Lillooet, Love Lillooet. Then there's partner programs like Land Without Limits, Gold Country, and all these things. So part of the discovery we need to do is finding out what are all these resources, where are they at, how neglected are they, how useful are they, how many people are going to them. And then out of all of that, those last 5 steps I mentioned in the short term, step 6 is to bring all that information together to the Economic Development Advisory Committee. When we were first proposing this ECDEV project, we're like, let's get this advisory committee going right early on. Then Suzanne and I were talking about what often happens with committees is they gather together and then stare at each other for an hour and wonder what they're doing there and what they're going to do next. So we actually want to bring a wealth of information to that first meeting, whether it be late July or August, so they have something to really sink their teeth into and then help us figure out prioritization and the way forward from that. So just a little update on some of the things going on there.
Thank you. Any questions for CAO? Thank you. Move to new business, item 17.1. I'm not going to read that letter. I'm just going to preface it with a few remarks in terms of, I feel strongly that Facebook is a really good media in which to convey information and in which to receive information. And I also know I can speak this much on behalf of council that none of us are afraid to be criticized. None of us are afraid to be disagreed with. And none of us are afraid to have other opinions. In fact, I embrace that, and I know you people do too. The one thing though I feel strongly about is that if there's misinformation, specifically if it's intentional, that's wrong. And rather than making a big deal out of it, I do like our Mr. Taylor does there. I've done that for years. I go in Vancouver, I go walking around the block before I make up my reply or my response, and sometimes I redraft it 2 or 3 times. The whole emphasis from my perspective, and I really like to get support from you, the council, is that, hey, we don't want misinformation intentionally and we don't tolerate it, but we really want to work together with all our societies and all our people here to move this thing forward. I feel that staff, this council, including me, this works very hard, and our staff works very hard for the benefit of this community. Not afraid to make mistakes or be criticized, but I view it as a piece of denigration that I just am not happy with. So I'm asking if you folks would support that so that I can sign the letter at the bottom of mayor and council rather than just mayor. So will somebody move that the letter from District of Lillooet's mayor and council included in the June 22nd, 2020 special council meeting agenda be sent to the Lillooet District Historical Society? Councillor Hoffel moves, second Councillor Weed. And thank you to Councillor Leach for staving that off very quickly. I really appreciate that. She came out and put the real information there, and that's how we have to do it. I really appreciate that. We'll call the question. Those in favor?
Can I?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can we just put it on the table?
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks. I appreciate you bringing it to light, of course. I am wondering if sending a letter to the Historical Society is not going too far into a gray area of, I don't know if it's freedom of speech or what have you. And I just want to like get the general feeling. Like this letter is lovely drafted. I think it's to the point, and I don't disagree with you. But I just want to be cautious before we send something like this out. And I'm just wondering if we can have that discussion.
Again, I appreciate that you took the time to do this. I'm on board with you in addressing false information. I'm also with Councillor Leach in that perhaps we could consider using components of this letter, but making it more of an informational standpoint as opposed to a directive standpoint, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Hoffel.
Well, I was at a couple of these meetings, and I feel that this letter needs to go out because regardless, as a council representative on this society, I feel that I should be signing my name to this personally as well. And I think that we have a direct responsibility to these societies, and we're not, yeah, we are about taking criticism and we are about, but rudeness, is just not tolerated, and I think that has to be stopped.
Councillor Howe? No, please make your feelings be known, that's what it's about.
I understand the sentiment behind what you're saying completely, but to a certain degree, personally, when I chose to run for councillor, I knew I was going to come up against criticism, and unfortunately part of open media and open media as a platform for the public to speak, we're likely going to hear false information provided, and I think that it's up to us to counter that with accurate information, as opposed to pointing out who said what. It just I feel there's something about it that just, I think that the information and the point comes across a lot differently as well, and possibly received a little bit better, possibly.
Okay, you should have seen my first draft. Councillor Leach.
So, and I want to thank Councillor Hoppel for being honest on her opinion on this, because it does mean a lot to me. I also I guess too, the way we do business here, I also want to be able to, say if this were to happen in another organization outside of the district and outside of, I want us to be able to be leaders and be, sorry, I'm struggling with my words.
No, it's all right. Take your time.
I think maybe staff can interject a little bit and just, have you seen something like this in other municipalities? Is it common? Just kind of give me a bit more background on where the fine line is, I guess, because I guess that's what I'm looking for to make my decision on this.
I haven't seen a particular letter like this from all of council. Typically, it's more private correspondence addressing the issue. I'm not surprised that it's come to council, because there was a lot of private correspondence that occurred that led up to the public post. So it was very clearly intended from a few people's perspective here that it was intentional misinformation. And then the actions in the meeting itself, they were what they were, regardless of the district's stance. The treatment of staff and council wasn't honorable. So would I write a letter like this myself? Probably. It'd probably be a private letter to them. I don't know if it would be as impactful. I think the fact that it's before council, even if it isn't adopted as a resolution to send this letter, I think the fact that you're having this open conversation will be heard, and that's important.
Thank you.
Councillor Wade.
I'm fine with sending the letter. I feel if it was a one-time thing or a first-time thing, like at the meeting, and it's been like a snowball effect, I feel. So it's not like you were heard at the meeting or council or whomever, it's like, I felt like we were into a bullying situation, and I really feel it needs to be addressed. I don't want to go down a slippery slope either, and I respect both the other councillors and how they feel. But I really think that it's, like I say, it has snowballed, and it wasn't a one-time occurrence. And then to me, it was a deliberate misinformation. Yeah, I'm fine with sending the letter.
Councillor Hoff.
I just have one further comment, is this is also, you know, taxpayers' dollars, and we allocate to this society those taxpayers' dollars for that society to run that entity, and that should be done in a professional manner. And if it's not done in a professional manner, and it is done like the personal emails that went back and forth that led up to this, I think that we do need to address it. So, like I said, I am quite willing to sign my name to this. I don't think this is right. I don't want any one of us to be treated like that. Staff, mayor, or council, especially by taxpayers' dollars.
So, the thing, obviously, I'm looking for a unanimous vote here, but at the end of the day, I still have the prerogative to send it myself.
Or if the majority of council votes, it is a council
I hate
decision.
like hell dragging and somebody kicking and screaming into something this important, that's all. That's just my opinion.
I just wanted to have a discussion. I'm ready to vote. I made it in my mind. I just wanted.
Any more discussion?
How long would it take to alter some of this? In which case I would feel comfortable voting yes to have it.
To the mayor, okay, I've altered it plenty, and I'm not gonna alter it anymore.
Okay.
Okay, sorry,
No,
but that's the
fine.
truth, that's the
Okay.
truth.
All right.
I think it's being very kind, as it is. And the whole idea, keep in mind, from my perspective, is to bring the people in to work with us. That's what we want at the end of the day. I'm not interested in, I got even, haha, I win. That's not it, that's childish. But we're receiving the childish conduct on the other side. And what it is for us is to say, hold it a minute here, come on. We got big business to do here, and let's get on board with it. And as I say, Facebook is powerful, and that's why I'm not on it. But Facebook is powerful, and it's a darn good tool for information, but it's gotta be real information, so. Shall I call the question? Yes, sorry, Councilor
I'd
Reid.
like to see the first draft.
No, the CAO has burned it. Okay, any further discussion, guys? I don't want to make too much of a deal, but I feel it is important. It really is important to set the tone of where we going. Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those against? Okay, it's carried. I wouldn't hope, but that's okay. It's carried. Real good. Okay, item 17.2, call to action, number 57. Councilor Howe.
Yes. Number 50, yes, okay, thank you. On to that, or, all right, so I've been working on this one for a little while now, especially in light of global, federal, provincial, and always local events. It is time to consider how we are showing up as mayor and council, as representatives of the District of Lillooet in our approach to peacefully but impactfully combating racism. So, I'm going to start by reading call to action number 57 of the 94 calls to action that derive from the Truth and Reconciliation process. I'd like everyone to listen. We call upon federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, treaties and Aboriginal Crown relations. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. And I think this is really important because this call to action calls municipal governments to the table. And we haven't really stepped up. I mean, we've been working our butts off, but they lay out so eloquently and so clearly a very important component of this reconciliation process that we think is so important. So I have put together a few motions in request for resolution by council to address this. So bear with me, it's a work in progress. And so the first one is, as we've been preparing for the upcoming OCP, or Official Community Plan, we have agreed upon the importance of having the surrounding First Nations communities at the table during our discussions. But we've never really worked out what that looks like. And so I'm not too sure what our expectations look like, and I'm not certain that their expectations are in line with our expectations, and there could be room for challenge later. So I'm asking that we direct staff to bring back a proposal for an engagement strategy for this process.
Sorry, for which?
For a, what did I call it? A proposal for engagement strategy
Okay.
for this process. It
Can I
doesn't
make
have
a
to be,
comment?
doesn't have to be grand.
To me, that's a done deal. That's the whole process of the OCP, is to do that engagement. And I think my concern is, Councillor Howe, what you're doing is you're surmising something is not going to happen when it very well may be. And obviously, before the end product is, we have a lot of influence. If you remember when we first met with the OCP group, we guide it and we'll monitor it eventually. Mr. CAO, what is it? It's not going to be a done deal in 6 months' time and it comes to council and we're supposed to put a rubber stamp on it. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
That's kind of what's happened in the past. So I take your point from there, but my reading of it from this council, we're going to have a lot of input and influence through the process. So just my take on it is, hey, you're concerning yourself, and it's good to be concerned with something that hasn't happened, and I feel probably won't happen or shouldn't happen. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, my concern is that we say that we want to ensure that we invite the First Nations communities to the table. And when I consider the process that Modus has presented to us in terms of gathering data for the OCP, I want to ensure that that process doesn't include them as just a part of a workshop group or part of the general public. I want to ensure that our process with them is sensitive to our relationship with them. And I also want to ensure that what that process actually looks like meets their expectation as well, because they've heard us mention that this is a part of our process, and this is all very important to us that they're at the table. But what is their expectation? What does that look like for them? Have we managed that expectation?
That's the whole work of that process.
Okay, maybe I'm not understanding.
No, I just,
I'm more
I'm not
linear
gonna be able
in
to say what
thought,
you're
so
looking at is, you're looking at something that hasn't happened and might, and yet I feel as one member of council is not going to happen. Because we were fairly clear in the beginning, obviously, all of you have had conversations with the various First Nations, but I have with the Lillooet Tribal Council Chief, with Michelle Edwards, and including Chief Courtney Adolph Jones, and that they'd be fully engaged with our OCP. They're part of our surrounding community. So anyway, I shouldn't interrupt you so much, and Councillor Leach wants to say something before you.
I know you're zeroing in on the OCP, but the larger document that we work with is our municipal objectives and our strategic plan, and it is in there. And if you, and in all of the reports that staff has given us, it's outlined when and where that consultation with First Nations and has been and needs to be. And I mean, we have fairly a new staff turnover in the last, let's say 6 months. If it's been 6 months, it feels like it's been a lot longer, but years. It was a compliment. It was back and a compliment, but
And Mr. Pedantic will help us.
But that being said, the relationship from my view has come so far in the last 6 months. Like, I feel like it's almost, and I'll let you continue on, so I want to hear you out for sure, but what you're saying, I feel like you're jumping the gun a little bit, and it's kind of, I feel like you're addressing like we're not doing it, and I feel that we're doing the best we possibly can with the tools and the resources we have right now. So I think it gives you
Okay,
much-
yeah, thanks, Carol. I guess it's incumbent upon us, you're right, that we listen fully to what Councillor Howe has to say. Yes. We should, rather than start to sway you before you're finished.
It's quite all right, no, really, this, aside from process and due process, each motion I was hoping to put forth individually so that we could have these conversations. So that when and if we move to resolution, that we're, like Mayor Gussie expresses, that we're all on board and have the same feeling. So, I'm glad to hear from Councillor Leach, because my intention was not to say that we were moving ahead without that process or without involving, and that we were not working towards that. It was more along the lines of asking for what that engagement would actually look like, and how does it differ from public engagement. But you had mentioned that it was already in.
Yeah, in some
I
of
missed that.
in some of the reports that staff have given us, like I think it was actually at the last meeting in a report from Rory, correct me if I'm wrong, it said that you had consulted with, was it Chief Edwards, I believe, on a project?
And the Cleveland Band.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that engagement's happening, and I also feel like if there was a concern or an issue, that staff would already know about it and have brought it to our attention if it needed to be, if it was outside of the operational range. I mean, that's just my feeling. I mean, maybe I'm being too trusting of you guys already. Ooh. I don't know.
Okay, we need
Okay.
to listen to you.
So anyway, that was one of a few.
One of them.
One of a few. So I'm not really sure how to proceed forward with this particular one. Do we just?
Yeah, listen, we're here to hear you out from that perspective. And if I could draw an analogy, which a guy my age kind of does, is that I think where you're leading to with your first, it's like taking a 50-pound hammer to a 1/4-inch nail. The nail is going to get in the wood. It's going to be down there. Depends on how we go. And to recall my conversation with you, I am on board with you with regard to movement and reconciliation and engaging. But there's a process to bring in, and our council to council ones is really important.
Yes.
The second one, which I need to bring to you guys, which I will soon, is how do we do the reconciliation? I'm in conversations with Chief Susan James, and I bought. Do you mind allowing me the floor? I'm taking up your time.
I do speak to that.
No.
As a segue into what you're working on. So I think that will marry.
All right, I'll leave it with you.
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm
Okay.
stealing your floor time.
That's okay. So anyway, for motion, the second motion. I lost my motions. No, okay, here we go. So for the community to community event, once again, some time has passed since our last community to community event. And we had action items that we took away with us. And with all things considered and all things that have happened, obviously those were not priority at the moment. We had COVID to deal with. So now as we come out of COVID, not back in, we'll see. I think it's important to come back to the table for another meeting of the community to community meeting to discuss some of those action items. Just to actually have open discussion that, like for instance, one of the action items was to have management discuss and staff discuss an area for the rec center for.
People coming from Shalab.
Well, yeah, it was like a safe space,
Or a safe space
a sacred space where they could go and sit and wait on what it is that they were doing. So, but of course, there's a lot of question that arises from that, from a staff perspective and administrative level that I think should be brought to a meeting like this again, so that we can have that open dialogue to work out what that might actually look like. And then, of course, there's a myriad of other topics and a conversation and takeaways. So,
May I make a quick suggestion then? You bring up a good point. Well, we can direct staff to say, report back to us on this commitment that we made at the C2C, and then wait until that comes back. It's a valid point, it's gone underwater, but we can make all kinds of excuses because we had interim this, interim that, but I believe you're doing right. Okay, where does this stand? I think that rather than a resolution to council is say, hey, staff, where are we with this? You know, and come back to us and tell us. My suggestion. Again, to me, if I was a staff member, I'm just put the reverse roles in and say, you want to create a resolution on something that we already agreed with, you're sort of sending out the signal to me, I'm not doing my job properly, No, that's the way I feel, right? So, but the point, there's nothing wrong with us as council is saying to staff, hey, where are you? We make the question, so you're valid there.
Well, I was actually, so that's another one, then I'll put that forward as well while I'm on a roll. The first one is requesting staff to once again draft a letter, drafting an engagement strategy regarding the next C2C. So within that sort of, when might we might be able to come back to the table? What are the,
yeah, that's a good one.
You know, I understand we're really, really short on budget.
No, but the point is,
how can we make this happen?
It's worth the discussion between our staff and their staff, and they can come back and do it.
Yeah, as well. Oh, sorry.
Could I just ask a question? If we were to request that, would we not request where it would be, like how our COVID space would work out? Like, I mean, if we all have to be, 6 feet apart, I don't know that that's even an option right now. I don't even know if any of like our rec center isn't open, so I don't know if any of theirs on Van Land is open, so.
So perhaps that would be part of the strategy.
So that would be probably the first question to find out.
It's worth the discussion to find out, okay, come on, what's the plan? Can we get it going?
Exactly. So I'm putting that forward. As well as the motion to have for an update on where we're at coming out of the community to a community event.
Okay, hold it there, if I can do. This is a concern and a passion from one of our council members. Do we need a resolution to it, or can we gain action activity from staff by requesting it? How best to deal with this?
In this case, I request a resolution because it will be significant time.
Okay.
For staff to actually confirm where we're at with each of the action items, how each of the member communities is feeling about their own desires to work on these actions with us and the potential for the next C2C meeting. So it will bump other things. So a resolution of council would be the principle.
You said this is where this is going, Councillor Howard. Okay. Well, I'll leave it up to you in terms of how you want to deal with it.
I think we should just kind of wait because Barb's not hearing this, so.
Okay, we have a recess. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's really quiet now. Wow, I can't believe you came to the longest meeting.
Did you have 45 minutes? We should be ready for it. My wife's like, did you see the agenda before? I said, Jeremy told me 45 minutes. I said.
Before we reconvene, Councillor Weed should share with us that at the SLRD meetings, they have some nice fruit and donuts and muffins that's available to all the members, so I just thought I'd share that.
Actually, Councillor Weed, through the mayor, would like to tell you that we are still doing Zoom meetings, so the only fruit that I have is kind of an overripe banana on the counter at the moment for my Wednesday's meeting.
Understand. Okay, we'll reconvene. Councillor Howell, would you please carry on, continue, please?
Okay.
This is on call to action, number 57 of the 94 calls related to what municipalities should do for reconciliation.
That's correct.
Okay?
So that's 1, 2, we'll go with 3 tonight. The third one is very much based on the skills-based training and intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism component, the actual call itself. And I would like to direct staff to consider or to look into what's the word I'm looking for now? Grant options to support training for council and mayor and district representatives to undergo this type of training. There are, and I've yet to investigate them, but I was provided the name of a few First Nations owned companies whereby the owners would come in and actually facilitate that training. And in speaking with Mayor Bussey, he had let me know that he'd been communicating with Chief Susan James regarding a local option for that process. So I would like to know what funds are available. I'd like to motion that district, or that, sorry, my brain is slowly going.
Okay, take it one at a time.
I would like staff, I motion that district staff come back to us with budget options or grant options, funding options for this type of training.
Sorry, what is?
Wait, hold it. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Howell. So you're making a motion?
Yes.
That's right. Have you got the recording on, so we got that motion?
Yep.
So do it again. Have you got it, or shall we have Councillor Howell put it on again?
If you can read it out in the form of a motion, that would be.
Sure, I know that was a bit
so
convoluted. Okay. So I put forward the motion to district staff that they come back to council with finance options to support.
Funding options.
Funding options, thank you, to support.
C2C.
No,
No.
I'm talking about the.
Okay, sorry.
The direct call to action for number 50, direct call to action number 57, requesting municipal governments, council and staff educate themselves in the rights of Indigenous people, treaties, and Aboriginal Crown relations.
Okay,
Well, there's so much more to that, but
that's the motion you've moved,
yes.
right? All right, who seconds the motion? Councillor Weed. All right, any further discussion? Councillor Hoffel, you had a question.
So I'm not exactly sure what the training is, just to educate us on what?
Sure, so I'll
On
read the list.
treaties or?
Yes, so there's quite a bit for us to know about our
There is,
history.
but I mean, is that not what they do at C2C? Like, can
No.
they not do that at
No.
C2C?
No, see, it's entirely different.
But can they not? I'm just saying.
No, we would not ask,
Go.
it would be rude of us, I think, to ask Indigenous peoples to teach us about the history from a governance to governance perspective or level. I think that this is work that we need to take on for ourselves. It is initiated by us. Therefore, we're the ones to go and look for the resources to help us through guided training in learning about these details of our history. I don't think it's a subject that we would add to an action item list or a conversation list at a community-to-community event.
No,
Doesn't seem correct.
If I can say, but Councillor Hoffel was asking you what specific training, is that not right?
Oh, well, I'm certain that these consultants would have a very specific list, but when I read directly from the call to action number 54, it says, provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties, and Aboriginal Crown relations. And it says this will require skill-based training.
So it's an all-encompassing training.
It's an all-encompassing training.
You got the, yes, Mr. Taylor?
May I attempt to put this in the form of a resolution? Sure. That council directs staff to report to council on funding options for training on Aboriginal issues as stated in call to action number 57.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Weed.
Did you get your answer, Lauren?
Okay. I don't know where to start with some of this. I think seeing as it comes from the federal government, provincial government, all put together, so to speak, their call to actions and their 96 things that they would like municipalities to do, that, and I did make this suggestion to Councillor Howe when we had our conversation, that some of these could be resolutions written up, passed through SILGA and onto UBCM. If they would like each municipality to do these things, they need to provide some kind of an umbrella of funds and people to teach these classes, right? Like there's got to be and I think that, yes, we can do the baby step stuff, but to actually, to me as a small municipality, it would be really hard. Okay, we have 4 councillors and a mayor. Now we're going to work on what we're going to work on, and then you have an election and you might have 1 returning councillor or 1 returning mayor and no returning councillors, and now you're starting all over again. I think it would be like an ongoing thing, so I think it would be better assessed through a resolution through SILGA or UBCM. That's just my own personal feeling.
Okay, wait 1 second, you'll get that. If I had my hand up before you.
End the line, Jen, end the line.
I think everything you mentioned is laudable. You got to, council has to question, is this the right time?
Mm-hmm.
That's just for where I'm coming, yes, Councillor Leach.
Timing is everything, I agree on this. The other thing that, besides having training locally, because that's a whole nother, like bringing in some consultant from Vancouver who may go through all of these steps and all of this history and it not pertain locally, I think could be seen as an offense to some of our local First Nations. But also, you know, our own personal experiences with our neighbors plays a huge role. Like I think growing up here and going to school here and going to school in a different time that you grew up and went to school here, and then the different generational aspects for the other 3 that sit at this table are hugely different. So I just, rather than putting it into staff time, I think that it's just an undertaking that we would each need to do individually and personally. I get that it makes a huge statement, a big impact that we're gonna do this, but quite frankly, to put out this big call that we're tooting our own horn that we're gonna do this versus us actually getting the relationship that we've been working on off the ground and running. I don't personally, I get what you're saying and I appreciate it and I understand. I just can't get behind it. I'm sorry. I'm struggling with it, just because it's staff time, they're already overloaded. We didn't budget it in the financial plan at the beginning of the year. And maybe to have it revisited when we are doing a financial plan or strategic plan. Although I think we've already got it in there, I'm struggling at this time.
Okay, good point. Before I ask you two, Councillor Howe had a response, I think, for
Yes.
Councillor Weed.
So speaking to bringing it to Silga, I think that that's helpful, although we don't need the province to tell us as leaders within our district to make a move in this regard. We are the leaders, so we get to make that call. I'm not saying that we pull from the money that's already been budgeted and allocated. I think that would be insane. We're not in a position to do that. That's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that we look at funding options. They may already exist.
That, in retaliation to that a little bit, I wasn't referring to a resolution to SILGA for them to tell us how to make a move. I was referring to a resolution to SILGA for the funding to carry forward those actions. Like, how do they expect?
It may already exist. We don't know, and that's why I'm making the ask.
Okay, careful here, listen to
No,
me, Councillor Hoffel.
So it does actually already exist in a way, because Interior Health got a mandate from the provincial government that they had to do a training course, but it was online. So each one of us had to do a mandatory 8-hour training course online on our own whenever we could. And we all did it, and it was recorded. And I think that might be, and it didn't take any staff time, because it was just downloaded onto your computer and you actually listened to it. You learned and you did that. But other than that, I agree with Councillor Leach in that we all have our own ways of getting to know and
Guys, I don't want to cut off this, but I have to. We've discussed it enough for this resolution. Councillor Howe, I'm sorry, it's a long night, and I think you've got the gist of how the other councillor are feeling, so we'll call the question. Those in favor? Okay, and those opposed? Not carried. Okay, you have a second one?
Yes, I'd like to call a motion that we request staff to come back for a proposal for engagement strategies for the community-to-community event. Yeah.
Okay, do you have that, Mr. Taylor?
Just a moment, please.
And, okay, and anyone second? Councillor Weed? And again, from my perspective, you're calling to resolute something we're going to do anyway. It's a matter of timing. That's the way I feel about it. So, you know, what you're saying is, I'm sure we all agree with, is it the right time? So, anyone else? It's on the table. Councillor Leach?
Yeah, and kind of the same, like, you made a comment, can we afford, I can't remember your comment, but what I want to propose to you is, can we afford the staff time right now at this second that is bumping all of our other objectives to do this? Like, it is our turn to host that C2C, and obviously it's going to be bumped because of COVID. It's not going to happen as scheduled, but there is planning when that comes up. There's grant applications when that comes up. There's a whole process. And does it have to be done right now ahead of everything else that they have on their plate?
Good point. I'd like to keep the discussion down limited. It's a long day. Thanks, Councillor Leach. Councillor
I
Weed?
didn't have anything else.
Councillor Hoffel? No? Okay,
Is there a date set?
sorry?
Is there a date set? Do we?
No, there isn't a date set,
There's
no,
no-
but from my perspective, obviously, as one member, that's something that administrators and two administrators will do in terms of achieving the best time for it, you know. To resolute it, what it does, it forces staff to do something now, and we lose something else, so. But hey, you called it, it's on the floor. No further discussion, let's call the question. Those in favor? And those opposed? Not carried. Okay, Councillor Howe, you have another one? As I say, keep in mind from council, me as mayor and council, we agree completely. It's all in the timing.
Yes, I would put forward a motion for.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Mr. Taylor, sorry, yes?
I just want to bring forward one procedural issue, that if you are wanting to bring these back to later council meetings, it gets more difficult.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot about that.
Um,
So, good point. So Councillor Howe, you should consider what you bring, because if it doesn't get approved, it's a lot more difficult for you to bring it back. So think that one over carefully.
Okay, well, this one I think is. Oh, perhaps we'll wait then. It's so hard.
No, I'm done, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Howe. Okay,
Good job.
well done. You've got to twist our arms a bit more and beat us up.
Oh, we're done.
All right, good. Okay, item 17.3 is the letter from the Lillooet District Rescue Society funding request. Councillor Weed, you brought that up?
I did bring it up because I know that Area A and Area B were donating some grant writer hours from Lori Reimer from their two different areas there to assist Lillooet Rescue in writing a grant to be able to get funding to purchase the building that they're in. And after talking to Mr. Deniker and then seeing the difference between what the district can do and what these different areas can do, I just wondered if we could kind of just put it out there, the reasoning why we can't, rather than we just said no.
Yes, there's a very good valid reason. It stems from two things. One, the policy against asking for what effectively is grant and aid, which we have a policy against this to go through the Lillooet Community Fund, which I've recommended to them, that may be able to give them seed funding to help pay for grant writing. The other one is the way that we have a grant writer versus area A and B. A and B have the same person, Lori Reimer, working for them, but she's working as an employee through a community organization, and the community organization's grant funding from NDIT is explicitly for a community organization to support community groups. Whereas the grant application the district put in from NDIT was specifically for a grant writer to help the district, the corporation of the District of Lillooet, apply for funding for Corporation of District of Lillooet programs. So they would be a third party to it. So if we were to donate Lori Reimer's time, that would amount as a grant and aid through in kind.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, discussions? Councillor Leach?
In the future, when we go to apply for that funding, would it be, I guess, I don't know, thinking of a different word, but would it be kosher of the district to apply to the funding in the same the same way that the other areas do, or did that contradict the policy?
Yes, both those questions.
Thanks.
Hello.
Well, that was easy.
Okay, then what I take it is we need to resolute that we received this as correspondence. From what I'm gathering, is there a bit of a reply rather than a straight no? Does that have to show in the resolution? Are you going to do it anyway?
Staff have already replied to them, provided them the explanation.
So I need someone to move that we received that correspondence from the Councillor Weed, who will second. Councillor Howe, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now 17.4 is the Lillooet Volunteer Connect. Councillor Howe?
Okay, I feel like I've spoken so much, this probably shouldn't come from me, but, okay, here goes. So, I'd like to address the letter, because it personally, it's an important letter, but there was a component in there that came as a bit of a surprise, so I'd like to address that. So I would like to first address the expressed acknowledgement of disappointment for the lack of mayor and council's involvement in the important online bi-weekly Zoom meetings. Firstly, I do apologize for my lack of involvement, and I am truly sorry to have disappointed the Volunteer Connect participants. The work being done and the topics of discussion as expressed in the letter are indeed very important to me, and I would hope that my involvement in other community-based endeavors would speak to this. However, I recognize they're not always made public. I do ask that they please consider the hours of work we do put into this community in our servitude as mayor and council. After full-time jobs, meeting family needs, health challenges, having some family time, board commitment, Zoom meetings, emails, behind-the-scenes conversations as individual councilors and mayors with staff, as we work to serve this community the very best we can, we are maxing ourselves as well. So we truly are trying. In response to the second portion of the letter, I'd like to say that I do appreciate the work that's being done. It's important, it's impactful, and it is vital to the health of this community, and more importantly, potentially the difference between life and death for some. I would be happy to see our economic development liaison working collaboratively with the Volunteer Connect group regarding building resiliency in the community as we enter into economic recovery. And I understand, Mr. Denegore, that you had already spoken to working with them through Suzanne Denbick at a later time. I think it was after some of the other stakeholders were addressed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that changes up my motion, but I would like to request that staff draft a letter to the appropriate ministry leaders regarding financial support be designated to local organizations to aid them in supporting community members as we continue through and come out of COVID-19 epidemic. That is my motion.
Could you repeat that?
Much slower.
They want to go. It's getting late. So my motion is that we request staff to draft a letter to the appropriate ministry leaders requesting financial support be designated to local organizations to aid them in supporting community members.
I'll just watch the video.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we open it to discussion, but let me back up. Did you and every one of councilors get an invitation to attend that meeting? Because I didn't see you copied on it.
I looked for it. And
I got the invitation. The MLA, the MP, Regional District B and Regional District A, and myself, the mayor. I didn't see any of you councilors on that. Did you get that invitation?
Well, I've heard of the invitations through, oh, you received one? But they were calling it something else. It was
and it was in May, not June.
Right.
It was May 25th, the meeting was May 26th.
Yes, so I'm not clear on what they're referring to with the June.
Well, the point is, obviously it's not clear. Now, whether you want to take the stance that, look, from my perspective, I said I would join, and I had full intentions to. Unfortunately, right at that moment, at that time, I got a call, and it's of a nature, whether it's business, personal, or otherwise, it's nobody's business. But I got an email that says, "Are you on?" And I said, "Sorry, I can't do it. I'm into something heavy here." And I got some real flippant response. That's fine. Hey, about Jericho. But it's interesting, you know, you taking lessons from me and some of your replies there.
Well, I thought about that.
I know it's a long day and a long meeting, but I've got the floor here, so I want to do something here. All right, you're looking at what is the salary made by our MP? Huh? Per month. Figure it out. What's the salary made by our MLA per month? Okay? And the salary by Area B and Area A is 2,000 some a month. What's the salary of a councillor and a mayor of Lillooet? Huh? Okay. I'll tell you something. The point is that I don't feel I have to apologize, and I'm not going to. We're all busy, but I'm not going to stick a barb as much as I would like in somebody's nose, whatever for it. So I mean, hey, you should carry that reply directly to them from yourself, and I think it almost speaks for us all. Again, I'm not that fussy about having, staff time tied up in a lot of that. But I know where your feelings are, because that's where my feeling, but you know what? We got important business to do and we gotta get on with it, so that's where I feel. Councillor Weed?
I did not, as a counselor, I'm going to say I got one in May, never got another one, but I did get one on behalf of the Miyazaki House. I emailed back and said that I was not available, that I would have a representative Zoom in, and she did Zoom in the one time, but whether she's followed up or not, I really don't know. But I just feel the fact that I emailed back on behalf of the society that I didn't have, I couldn't do it that particular time, that should be, well, if I can't do it as a board member, I certainly can't do it as
Good.
council.
See, we get paid big bucks to take those bars. Yes, Councillor Weed.
So besides the timing and the emails, whether we got it or whether we didn't, I think there was a specific line in here, I didn't outline it, but she said that they're disappointed that we didn't include them in the discussions with the tourism stakeholders and what have you. But even prior to council seeing this letter, they were brought up at that initial meeting with Susan Denbeck and getting their feedback. So to say that they're not being considered, I think is ridiculous.
Okay, but anybody else have a comment?
I think it's all been said.
I think so too. Now, Councillor Howe, what would you like to do with it?
I just wanted to address it.
Okay,
It sort of
but
stung and I thought, well.
It's
from a
taking
person-
care of itself naturally.
Exactly.
And I appreciate your passion and I love some of your words and I'd like you to convey those if you don't mind.
Sure, yes, I don't.
All right. Thank
There's a
you.
motion on the table.
So we need a motion on the table to accept this correspondence.
No, there's a motion on the table to have staff draft a letter to the appropriate administrator.
But we still have to, okay, that would,
Is that, sorry?
yes, Councillor Weed seconded it.
I seconded it.
Yeah, so it's on the table.
Yes, sure.
Okay, have you got that, Mr. Taylor?
Oh, who knows anymore?
Okay. I'm gonna call the question. Those in favor? Favor?
Oh,
Those in favor of the motion?
So,
Okay,
is everyone clear on what the motion is?
yes,
Okay, yes.
because we're looking to it. Those opposed? Not carried. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
It's a
Councillor.
no night.
Apparently,
No night.
bad night, big no night bar.
But as I say, obviously, you have every right, and so you should, to bring up anything forward to council, but I think as Mr. Taylor brings up a good point, you got something that you're holding on, you're passionate to, just be cautious. If it gets turned down, it hoops you up a bit, especially because some of the things you bring up are very important, and we are aligned with them. It's a matter of timing.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, item 18, meeting question period. Do we have to do this? Because I would assume we're fortunate enough to have the newspaper coming back under different ownership, so obviously from now on, they'll be able to sit in the room if they so care.
We do have one member of the club.
Oh,
Do you have any questions?
I need someone to, I need someone at the meeting be open to questions from the media and public. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leak. Call the question, those in favor, carried. Anybody, have you got a question?
Nothing was submitted, Mr.
Thank you kindly. Item 19.1, I need someone to move that the meeting of the District of Lillooet Council be closed to the public pursuant to Community Charter provisions, Section 91F, law enforcement. The council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of investigations under or enforcement of an enactment in order to receive a briefing from the RCMP. Who will so move? Councillor Hoppel, second Councillor Howe. Call the question, those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody. We adjourn. Who will move to adjourn?